Test one. Test 1, 2, 3.
Hi, everybody. The clerk will call the roll for City Council meeting started at 6:04 p.m.
Mr. Sinapi?
Here.
Mr. DeLuise? Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt?
Here.
Mr. Kirby? Here. Mr. Lattiser?
Here.
Mr. Muno?
Here.
Mr. Napa?
Here.
Mr. Ricks?
Here.
9 present.
If Councilman DeLuise will please lead us in the salute to the flag.
You're up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now if our special guest, Michael Bassett, could please lead us in the national anthem. Thank you very much. And Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is with great sadness
You don't have general.
that I'm going to ask for a moment of silence for my good friend and so many others, Mr. Ed Murphy. Mr. Ed Murphy has been a dedicated, loyal servant to the city for many, many years, as well as to the Board of Canvassers. He served in the position of the head administrator, was a very loyal individual, very caring, a very humble person, and it is a great loss in the passing of Mr. Murphy. So I would request a moment of silence, please.
Thank you, Councilman Lattiser. If we could please have a moment of silence. All right, first up, we have PCO6-26, an ordinance amending section 60-500, assuming my crossout doesn't cover it, of the Code of Ordinances to provide flexibility in city OPEB contributions that would exceed those matching employee contributions for the period until the state reimbursement on school construction debt service begins. This would be first passage So we got here in kind of a different way than normal, so I want to make sure everyone knows where we're at. So this is going to be before the full council. However, the hopeful path forward is that we'll first have introduction of a potential amendment and then have it so that the administration can explain, and then also have it so that the public can then speak, and then after that, we'll close the public comment and then be able to do the councils. And bear in mind, that's the plan for all three of these items, not just for this one, just so we're all clear. For this one, again, just to help orient everyone before we get into the discussion, bear in mind, we're here to discuss the option to allocate the funds above and beyond the contractually agreed to funds to go into the OPEB trust fund, which would be approximately $5 million for this year, the purpose of which would be, in this case, to allocate that money towards the school bond debt. The reason for that is that the alternative would be to, as stated so far, the alternative would be to either take from the budget, so a loss of services, and as at least one that the mayor pointed out the last meeting, would be the, for instance, a loss of service doing trash pickup half as much was one example. Or alternatively, we could take it from the rainy day fund. The problem with taking it from the rainy day fund is that we would lose interest that would accrue. And more importantly, it would be a potential hit to our bond or credit rating, which could have financial impacts of it of itself. And to be clear, we're not talking about messing with any of the collective bargaining agreements at all. Far from it, especially because we don't actually have the ability to mess with them here. We are talking about specifically the ordinance that was giving money above and beyond that. We're also not talking about interfering with benefits guaranteed to current employees or retirees. We are strictly talking about OPEB. We're not talking about pension. Again, we have no authority to mess with the benefits. Regardless of what happens here tonight, the benefits for retirees and anyone else who receives OPEB will still happen. If it's not paid via the trust, it will be paid via the method that we've always done, which is the pay-as-you-go model. And indeed, that is the method that we would be using anyway for probably decades, because you have to wait till the trust gets up to a certain amount before you can pull from it anyway. So doing this diversion temporarily doesn't actually hurt anyone. It's only the alternatives that stand to hurt. That being said, there is the one impact that's not ideal is that by doing a diversion of funds each year, should we choose to do so, because again, this actually only gives the option for such. And then when it comes time for the budgets, we'll actually be discussing it further then. We will lose out on the interest that would have accrued from that. So that is a fact. That is a fair point. If anyone was going to mention it, that is arguably the only financial hit we take in that regard. And so it's important to note the financial hit on the other end, as far as if we took from the rainy day fund or the credit bond rating hits. So those are all realities of the situation. All of that being said, first, a proposed amendment, Councilman Gebhardt.
Mr. President, point of order, please.
Yep.
I would like to, at this time, make a request to suspend the rules, given the significance, financial significance of this particular item, and not just in the short term, but in the long term, and suspend the council rules as it applies to a 10-minute limitation on individual comments.
You said the times, right?
I'm sorry?
You said times?
To suspend the 10-minute.
All right, I just want to make sure I heard you right. I apologize. All right, so it's a request. So can you just let it go? And
That's
it's
a
not really a
motion.
point of order. It's a request. Can we do the? He has the motion that he was called upon to make. Can we then go to you after the motion so you can make your motion to suspend the rules?
I'm sorry, what was the beginning you said?
So I had already called on Councilman Gebhardt to make his motion that he's going to make. Can we then immediately go to you so then you can make your motion?
Sure.
All right, just to keep everything ordered. So Councilman Gebhardt?
Yes, you'll recall at around 12:30 in the evening last Monday, I introduced an amendment during the time from when I introduced that amendment till now. I've had the opportunity to work with the city administration to refine that amendment. So I'll enter that amendment into the record here. So if you are looking at PCO6-26, subsection C, which starts during the period of time from when the city makes any debt service payments for the construction of new high schools and refurbishment of existing schools up until such time the state begins full reimbursement of the debt service payment. The city may, at its discretion, reduce its payment to the OPEB fund, provided that such amount is sufficient to match employee contributions, and that's where it ends. The amendment introduces a second sentence, which follows and begins, in the budget year following the commencement of full state reimbursement for debt service, the city will begin repaying the OPEB trust for any previously deferred amounts as confirmed by the actuary. Repayment may occur over a maximum of 4 years. That is the
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. So now discussion. But first, now Councilman Lattiser, you want to make a motion to
Oh, yes,
suspend the
thank you,
rules?
Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to suspend the council rules, limiting the public comment on this, including our own comment, for the 10-minute rule.
So just the 10-minute provisions.
Yes. So it's not limiting anyone's comments to
Understood.
just 10 minutes.
So is there a second regarding that request? All right, so discussion.
The reason for my request is, I think it's pretty obvious. This is a huge financial issue that involves not just the people in this room, but all of the taxpayers, all of the employees. And in the long term, you're talking a lot more than $50 million. And in the big picture, it's a lot more serious, in my opinion, than that. And I think to limit the discussion to 10 minutes on such a significant issue is not right. It's not fair. And that's why I made the motion to amend the council rules to suspend that.
All right, Councilman Gebhardt, your light's on.
I would just say that in the interest of keeping things moving, that we maintain our rules and not leave them open-ended. However, if there is a speaker who has more points than can be enumerated in 10 minutes, that we address the problem should it come up. I don't think we need to make the entire session open-ended. You'll recall that most other cities have a limit somewhere in the 2 to 3 minute range, as does the state. They deal with substantially higher sums of money in those hearings. So there's nothing to be said that a cogent point can't be made in less than 10 minutes. So I'll vote no.
All right, Councilman Foley.
First, I'd like to request of my colleagues and anyone in the audience who's going to speak, please lean into the microphone. I have a hearing device, and Councilman Gebhardt, you and I are very friendly. I barely heard with this on, I barely heard what you said. These comments are important tonight. I want to hear them. So please, if you're speaking, speak into your microphone. That's A. I am speaking against the doing away with the 10-minute rule. For my 5 years on the council this time, I have been the timekeeper at the Finance Committee meeting, and I went back and checked my notes, figuring someone would request this tonight, and I was able to find maybe 20 times in the 5 years where the 10-minute wasn't enough. And that was probably because people were repeating themselves 2 and 3 times. Council President, the rule is not to repeat something someone else has already said, not to repeat what you have said on the record on this matter, but as Councilman Gebhardt said, to be succinct and to the point so we can deal with this measure. I see a good crowd of Warwick citizens here waiting to speak. I don't want someone here to have to wait till 8 o'clock tonight to speak. So I think what Councilman Gebhardt said is how I would be voting on a need-to basis. If someone has hit the 10-minute mark and requests another 2 or 3 minutes, then we take it up on a case-by-case basis.
Councilman Napa?
I just share the concerns of Councilman Foley and Councilman Gebhardt that we do have a fair amount of citizens here that want to be heard, I would assume, and I wouldn't want to cut anyone short if someone speaks rather long-windedly and takes up a fair amount of time. Now, if that person does have something to say and they go beyond the 10 minutes, I'm more than happy to give that person more than adequate time. However, I would hate to see anyone here that wants to be heard run out of time because we run to the end of the meeting. So that's my only caution.
Councilman Lattiser?
Just so you all know, I'm not here to rush this thing through. And if it means we have to be here for a little longer than you'd like, so be it. There's also a lot of people in this room who are not informed, or not totally informed, and have questions that they may need to have answered. And 20 times over 5 years, okay, that does not speak to how many times suspending the rules was denied. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. This is the biggest of all. This impacts a lot of people. And if we can't give people a few extra minutes that need it to speak their mind, then that is makes no sense to me. So sure, you can do it on a one-on-one basis, and I will withdraw my motion if this council guarantees that if someone is needing an extra several minutes to complete their position, that'll be granted. And not granted because we like the person or we happen to agree or disagree with what they're saying. It's if someone needs an additional several minutes, I'm not talking double the time frame, if they need an additional 5 minutes to finish what they have to say, it'll automatically be granted. Thank you.
Councilman Foley?
I will not stand by and let my words be twisted. I am not rushing anything through tonight. What I said was I felt for my constituents and that we don't need to hear the same point over and over. That's A. B, a case-by-case basis doesn't mean you guarantee before you get to that point that you're going to give time. A case-by-case basis is you ask the person, do you have any other points to make? So asking us to guarantee ahead of time is not what case-by-case means. Again, on a case-by-case basis, let's judge whether or not people need more time.
I never said I was
So
speaking
hold
to
on,
your
we're not going to do back
comments.
and forth. We're not going to do that. So we've spent 10 minutes talking about something, and so it doesn't seem like we're using our time well so far. And it does feel like we're putting the cart before the horse insofar as there isn't actually an issue yet that anyone has had where they've run out of time tonight. Because again, we haven't even started. And it is also worth noting that we did start discussion on this at the last meeting, so it's not like we have never discussed this issue at all. Granted, the amendment is new before us, so that is fair to point out. We did not discuss the amendment because it wasn't before us. But people can vote however they want to vote. We can't guarantee what Councilman Lattiser is saying. It's not. I understand your point. We can't do that other than via motion. So I'm inclined to just have the clerk call the roll. But Councilman Gebhardt, your light's on.
Given that the motion was withdrawn, does anyone need to hear the amendment again?
So the motion wasn't withdrawn
I
because
didn't
it was
withdraw the motion.
it was conditioned on something that we can't fulfill.
Oh, can we call the question then?
All right. Clerk will please call the roll.
Mr. Sinapi,
No.
Mr. DeLuise,
I need a clarification.
Oh, so a no vote would be, no, that's a perfectly fair question. I should have stated it. So sorry, Councilman DeLuise. So right now before us is the motion to suspend the rules regarding a 10-minute time limit.
No.
So a no vote means you're saying no to that motion. So we're clear. So no from me, no from Councilman DeLuise, and please
Mr.
continue.
Foley? No. Mr. Gebhardt?
No.
Mr. Kirby?
No.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. Muto?
Yes.
Mr. Napa?
No.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
3-6, motion fails.
All right, so back to the amendment itself. Councilman Gebhardt has introduced it. There was a first, there was a second. If the administration would like to speak regarding the proposed amendment.
Good evening, Bill Vicente, Chief Staff to Mayor Picozzi. Spent most of the day talking to many retirees that I have not spoken to in quite a few years. It was good to catch up, but it's also good to clear up some misinformation. As the council president mentioned, this ordinance change does not affect any retirees' pension benefits, health coverage benefits. We're not borrowing against any funds. We're not borrowing against any retirement plan. We're not borrowing money against OPEB. We're not taking a loan against any fund. What we are asking for is the discretion to defer putting in a portion of the reduction in what the actuary tells us to put into the municipal pension contribution. So the actuary does an analysis every year, and they tell us how much we should put in to keep the pension system, municipal pension, police and fire, all the pensions funded and functioning well based on market returns. What they've told us is that based on the market returns and how well funded the municipal pension fund is, currently at 84.5%, we can make a smaller contribution from the municipal side. Prior to 2024, we wouldn't be having this discussion. 2024, we started the OPEB trust. The OPEB trust ordinance calls for any reduction in the pension contributions on the city side to be put into the OPEB trust to use it as seed money. The OPEB trust is a 30-year funding plan. Okay? What we're asking for is a deferment of the funding for 1, 2, possibly 3 years, depending on the state reimbursement for the schools. We're not changing the pension contributions to the pension systems, any of them. We're putting in what is required by the actuary. Prior to 2024, this money would have just gone into the general fund. Because of the ordinance and the way it's written, it goes to the OPEB contribution. This year, in 2027, coming up, the city is facing almost $16 million in school bond principal and interest payments. We still have municipal bonds that we sold years ago, totaling approximately $2 million. So we're looking at almost $18 million in debt service principal and interest in 2027 alone. The voters approved the 2 high schools, the $350 million bond, and the other previous bonds for the elementary and middle schools. The plan has always been to use the general fund, the fund balance, and any reduction in the contribution requirement per the actuary. The options are, if we don't do the $5 million, if we don't approve this ordinance, then the city would be forced to take an extra $5 million out of the fund balance, or raise the taxes, or cut services, lay off employees. Okay? What we're asking for is the opportunity to defer the $5 million contribution this year. And in the ordinance that Councilman Gephardt read, the city is willing to pay it back. And we're only deferring, asking for the ability to defer it until such time as the state starts to reimburse the city for the schools. The schools will not be reimbursed until substantial completion, which is estimated in FY29. Pilgrim is a little bit behind schedule, so that may take till FY30. It's clear in the ordinance that the city is committed to repaying any deferred amount in principal back to the OPEB trust. Keep in mind, the OPEB trust plan was a 30-year plan. It's in the infancy right now. We've done 2 years. We're doing very well with it. We're still putting in $1.25 million from the employees. We're putting in $1.25 as required from the employer, the city. We're asking to move the $5 million into the general fund to be able to help reduce the burden on the taxpayers in one way or another, either cost of borrowing, reducing the cost of borrowing, or reducing the tax rate. That's where we are, and contrary to anything that has been sent out, we're not borrowing, we're not affecting any retirees. This has nothing to do with anyone's benefits or current benefits that people are receiving.
All right, if possible, can we do a vote on the amendment just to have the full ask before us, before we go to public comment and then the full council? I see lots of lights coming on that are either saying yes to that or no to that. So is this in regards to what I just said or elsewise? Councilman Ricks?
Thank you. So what exactly is the effect of the amendment compared to not having that particular sentence there? Is the effect of the current ordinance, the current legislation as it's written, would that be requiring the immediate payment upon the reimbursement, or would that be leaving it open-ended that, oh yeah, at the end of the 30-year OPEB plan, then maybe we can go ahead and put the money back, restore it at that point? So by putting in that particular language of 4 years, well, what's that changing it from? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. The item before us was never completed for a vote on anything for an amendment. So the purpose of Councilman Gephardt's amendment that he fine-tuned is to put a payback provision into the proposal. So as drafted in its original form before you, it does not have language requiring that deferred amount to go back in. The amendment seeks to put guardrails in place to say that those funds deferred shall go back in under the timelines presented.
Does that answer your question?
Not entirely. So if the amendment were to fail, what would be the requirement as to the timeline for payback?
There wouldn't be one.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess a better way to go about this, assuming now we know what we're talking about, is there any objection to voting on the amendment just to get the full ask before us? If there is, then we'll go through everything.
I have a clarifying question.
That seems fair.
Clarifying question. Would you mind reading the amendment one more time? I heard too many mays in there.
Absolutely. So Councilman Gephardt's amendment would add 2 new sentences that currently follow the new language in the blue C, subsection C, which is the original component. So the new language says, in the budget year following the commencement of full state reimbursement for debt service, the city will begin repaying the OPEB trust for any previously deferred amounts as confirmed by the actuary. Repayment may occur over a maximum of 4 years.
So it's that may that I'm really reacting to, where may over 4 years, so we could technically be extending this 7 years, 8 years. We're deferring, follow me on this, we're deferring 3 years, possibly 4. And then once we get reimbursed, it'll take another up to 4 years to pay back. So it's a total of 8 years, potentially. Am I interpreting that properly?
The amendment adds a timeline that begins in a few years and extends potentially for a few years. So yes, in generalities.
So the opportunity cost could be potentially up to 8 years.
That is certainly a theoretical. That is possible. It would be the result of what each council decides year after year as to the extent to which they decide to use the tool and to the extent that they, within that window of time, want to complete their obligation to return the funds.
The administration appears to seek to say something.
So the ordinance only allows for the deferment of the OPEB trust funds from the municipal pension contribution until such time as the state starts reimbursing. The state's, like I said, I believe it's FY29. I don't know about Pilgrim, but that could be FY29 as well. Once FY29 comes, we can't defer the payment into the OPEB trust any longer. And we have 4 years to repay what we did defer. So in all intents and purposes, it would be about 2 years, possibly 3, depending on funding from the state getting the reimbursement. That's when we stop. So the repayment could take up to 4 years, but the withdrawals are only going to be for up to the time when the state reimburses us, which was right now FY29 is what they've told us. So there'll be 2 years potentially of deferred into the OPEB trust.
Yeah, and the point of me seeking to make this get the full ask before everybody is that it doesn't mean you're comfortable with a 4-year timeline. It's just saying, yes, you do want to mandate repayment, and yes, you do want there to be a timeline for it. And then once that's all before us, we can say, all right, but am I comfortable with that as a whole, or do I want to change any of the pieces of it? It just makes it easier for actually us to discuss things rather than to keep talking about speculations regarding really every aspect of it.
But I think that's the point, is to understand all the aspects before we vote. So with a payback period of 4 years, especially when we're going to get the refund of the $23 million beforehand, why is it taking the city or the administration 4 years to pay instead of moving it from one to the other?
Yeah, no, I think so. If we don't want to do the amendment, so I'm assuming, yes, you object to the prospect of putting the full ask before us then, because you wanted to speak. All right, so then so be it. So can we have a motion, please, to suspend the rules to open for public comment? so we can allow the public to speak. So motion to suspend the rules for the purpose of allowing for public comment. All right, motion made. Whoa. Pardon? All right, any objection to opening for public comment? All right, hearing none. So open. So if anyone, members of the public wish to speak, please come up to the mic. Just state your name before having at it. Bear in mind, I have to maintain decorum, which includes gaveling you or speaking up if you try to do personal attacks, if you're being repetitive, etc.
Council President, just point of order or point of something. I'm not sure what's called this. Request. Could the solicitor maybe circulate or email to members of the council the proposed
the
amendment
language?
so I can actually see it? Or can we get that printed and circulated in short order?
I didn't hear the question.
I just want to get a hard copy or an email copy of the proposed amendment printed and circulated between the council so we can actually see it.
He's on it.
Thank you.
And bear in mind, when it comes to this discussion, be it from the members of the public or from the council, we do have to stay on topic and on the correct subject. I don't want to have to interrupt anybody, so please try to make sure to stay on topic, because bear in mind, we were discussing specifically PCO6-26, which is the ordinance seeking to amend about OPEB and providing flexibility, et cetera. We're not discussing other aspects of the budget or anything like that. All right, so go ahead. My apologies.
Thank you. Michelle Comar, Ward 1. I appreciate your directions, Council President. My comment, my concern is some unknowns. Both the ordinance and the amendment address this reimbursement, this full reimbursement from RIDE. When is that going to occur? And I understand from the last meeting, the council had this issue before them, that both the high schools had to finish construction and the athletic fields need to be completed. And we know that the school department was short money. The $50 million bond did not pass. How are the athletic field component going to be funded? And was that 2029 date that the chief of staff gave, is that just for the school buildings or also the athletic fields? And the last component of that question is, how are the athletic fields funded? Because if there's more debt or more bills to pay by the taxpayers, maybe we don't have money at that time out of the RIDE reimbursement, because this is going to prolong out, to pay it back right away without more burden on the taxpayer. It's a matter of timing, and there's unknowns on when the athletic ball fields will be completed and how they are funded. I'll start there. Thank you.
So Lynn, if you're able to respond, please.
So, sorry, I know it's
Hi, Lynn.
very blinding looking that way. The taxpayers of the city have said they want to spend $350 million on 2 schools, and the city's intent is to stick to that. The building committee is working on plans for that to be enacted. We assume that substantial completion of the schools will happen in 29. I have no reason to think otherwise at the moment. And then the reimbursement will be about $22 million from the state at that time.
And can you identify yourself?
Sorry, I'm Lynn Prodger, Finance Director.
Thank you. Ms. Comar, do you have anything else?
Yes, I missed the answer. When are the athletic fields going to be completed? Are they not required by RIDE to be completed for the full reimbursement in addition to the school buildings themselves?
They are in fact required, and the intent is they will be completed in 29.
And what is the source of funding for the athletic fields, please?
The building committee is working on it.
Well, this is a great concern. What is it going to cost the city, the taxpayers? I think there's that big unknown at this point in time. And this bond was passed in 2022 by the taxpayers. And we don't have all our costs in line
So
for
Ms. Colmar-
funding of part of the component that RIDE is looking for, which is ball field construction, as well as school buildings for the reimbursement, which is 314, I'll just use a round number, $1 million. I think it's premature to develop a plan today until we know the date, the athletic fields, and we meet all the requirements for RIDE reimbursement. We're just guessing, and we don't know the implications of that to the city budget in the future, the taxpayer burden, and any kind of payback within 4 years. We don't know how we're footing the bill for the athletic fields. So I would think we're premature in voting on this tonight because we don't have all the funding sources disclosed, so we can really plan intelligently and accurately ahead for any kind of payback. And just to benefit my friends that may have showed up for the first time tonight, the OPEB funds, Council President, I'll ask you this question. You can have somebody answer this that you like. What do they really entail? Are they just the retirees' free health care, no copay, or are there any other benefits that this funds are diverted from?
So that's a fair point. OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits, typically by definition non-pension. I don't know if the administration wants to comment on any particulars in that regard.
Are you asking what the intent of the OPEB trust is exactly? The intent of the OPEB trust is, so in our budget every year, we do fund healthcare for our retirees. We've started a trust a few years ago with the intent of putting a little bit of money aside to be able to pay that bill in the future. Not dissimilar to one of our pension funds. The only way that that money can be spent, because it's in an irrevocable trust, is to pay for retiree benefits. And that alone.
Right, and I was here when the actuarial did the presentation, Mr. Newton, and he looks in a box, not what we can afford, but what we could pay if we didn't have any other financial worries. And so what he suggested that we need to pay is when all things are well and good. And he didn't consider the school construction debt, the municipal budget, the school department's budget. He's working on just that. I'd be comfortable and this is in light of not knowing how we're going to pay for the athletic fields, which are required to be built for each high school before RIDE reimburses the city. I'd be comfortable, because we're in a crisis situation, to just approve this for 1 year. And I appreciate the mayor looking out for the taxpayers, but we need a long-term plan that we have not sat down, clunked heads together, the council and the public, to get all the answers to our questions, which I want to be considerate tonight, not to keep asking all these questions, but that is the main one, is we don't know how yet to finance. I haven't had the answer yet tonight, the ball fields, which are required for state reimbursement. So I would be comfortable, my comment is that the council only approve for 1 year because we're in crisis mode. We've done no planning. So the amendment that the mayor can divert these funds for 1 year and revisit this again next year. Hopefully everyone's back here next year, gets reelected on the council. So you could take this up again year by year, because a lot can happen, as my Italian friend says from the Hill, a lot can happen between now at 5 p.m. We have a long ways to 5 p.m. We don't have our ducks in order for financing the athletic fields. That has not been disclosed to us. The bond referendum had a completion date of 2027. Now we're at 2029 for the schools. What does that do to the costs? Now we don't even know when we're going to get reimbursed. I don't want to put Councilman Gephardt on the spot, but it's his amendment for this reimbursement date and 4 years after that. Do we know we can do that? Do we know what the ball fields are going to cost, and how is that wrapped into our general fund or more tax burden, thank you, to the taxpayers? So that is my main concern. I see seniors, well, I'm a senior, but I see more seniors in the audience tonight. I know they're concerned about the tax burden. And I just want to shout out to them that we're glad the mayor is considering to lower the tax burden this year, but we need the full disclosure of what the game plan is on how to pay this bond debt off in the future and what it's going to cost the taxpayer. We haven't had a forum where the taxpayers have had their questions answered to this date. And the taxpayers went to the polls in 2022. All right, I'll stop there. Thank you, Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the public wish to speak on this? Just make sure to introduce yourself before you get going, please.
Robert Cushman, Ward 1.
Thank you.
Just want to thank Michelle for bringing some of those important points up. I did send an email out to the mayor and to all the council members, and it's probably not going to be stuff that are going to be answered now, but there's a lot of information and there's a lot of questions I think that really need to be answered concerning how much we're borrowing, the different rates that we're borrowing. We need a lot more transparency as to what's going on in terms of the total cost of the taxpayers. And so I do have a couple questions, and I'm not, it's just the sun's terrible over here. So in the original bond referendum, it talked about $350 million in bonds, right? But that's not exactly what we're borrowing, right? Aren't we borrowing a max of $325 million?
Yes, but because of the bond
So
premium.
hold on one moment. So we got to make sure we stay on topic. So we're talking about the proposed change to the ordinance regarding OPEB contribution. We're not talking about the bond. Even Ms. Comar's comments started to deviate, but the only reason why I didn't interrupt her is because that she was talking about the trigger point of when we would get the repayment money, which is in the proposed
So this all
amendment.
ties into the fact of the matter is we are not getting any reimbursement at all from RIDE until the athletic fields are constructed, right? Is that correct?
That's what.
Yeah.
At the moment, that is what I'm told. At the moment, I don't
Yeah.
know what happens 2 years from now.
And so right now, there's no additional borrowing to construct the athletic fields, right?
No,
Okay.
there's no more bond.
I mean, Council President, that's the only reason why I'm asking. I'm trying to determine, what the totals are. For example, the taxpayers were told, we're going to pay 4.5% over 20 years. That's not true. We just did a bond offering of $138 million at 5% for 25 years.
So that may or may not be true, but that has no bearing
mean
on what we're
yes, it
talking about
does,
here.
because
Even if the bond in question that you were speaking of is for $1 billion, it doesn't change the fact that the question before us is about amending this OPEB matter so that we can defer contributions to the
So we
OPEB
could
trust.
finance the current bonds. So we got $139 million in bonds that were sold in January, right? Is that correct? Do you understand that?
I would defer to the
Well, I'm asking you.
My answer is the same.
100.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how many more bonds are we going to sell in this next fiscal year coming up?
Again,
Well,
I would defer to the solicitor, but I'm having trouble following the relevance. because I'm
Councilman,
required to keep us on topic.
all
I'm
right,
not interrupting you for
We're
fun.
talking about using $5 million from the municipal pension fund because we're reducing it to
No, we are
pay
not.
for the principal and interest.
Nope.
So we're not actually
We
talking
are
about
not
that.
taking any money from the pension fund.
The municipal pension contribution is being reduced by 5-point-something million.
Not by us. It is just where the municipal plan amortization schedule
Yes.
has hit. I've worked for 3 mayors, and all 3 have had different ideas about what to do with this moment in time.
I'm not arguing against that. I'm saying we're getting a windfall because we're no longer paying 40% of a municipal employee's salary. It's going down to 18%. As a result of that, instead of paying $9-point-something million into the pension fund, the municipal fund, it's 3-point-something. There's a $5 million savings. We're discussing tonight taking that $5 million and using that to make the interest and principal payments on the bonds, right? So we should know exactly how much the principal and interest payments are going to be on the school bonds in fiscal year 27, right?
So bear in mind, what we're talking about is having the option
Yes.
to do what you described.
Yes.
This
Yes.
doesn't actually do it because what you're getting to, that discussion, if this passes, if it passes.
Yeah.
And then if it passes again for second passage, then that discussion happens on May 18th, May 19th, and the final budget.
So what's the total interest and principal payments in the fiscal 27 budget that the taxpayers have to pay?
So I'm going to make sure to formally ask him because I don't want to have to keep debating you on this. Are we on topic here or have we deviated?
We're here to discuss the flexibility. This precise numbers are relative to when any potential action could be taken. We're still in theoretical zone of whether or not this flexibility would exist. I mean, there's a light connection here. We try and need to keep it as close as possible.
I don't even understand what that means.
I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Cushman.
The bonds, the interest rates, those items are not on this agenda. So for the purposes of tonight's meeting, we need to stick as close
All
as
right.
possible to the contents of the ordinance before us.
So can I ask you a question? For example, if you want to make an amendment to spend 5.3 million, can you do that tonight?
There's no dollar amount
That's
connected
right.
to this.
We don't even know how much the total principal and interest is going to be. So technically, this council is blind. If they have more than $5 million, they can make an amendment. If Mr. Gebhardt can make an amendment to put money back in 4 years from now, why can't the council make an amendment to use 5.3 million? Don't we need to know all the math and all the equations before you can come up with a plan of X amount of dollars to pay for principal and interest?
So there's no, in the proposed amendment or the original language, there is not a dollar amount stated because it's not relevant to that question.
It's not relevant.
No, because of what I've already said. We're only talking about having the option to
but
do
it-
something. The part that you want to talk about is absolutely relevant for the budget meetings because that's when that happens.
So if Mr. Lattiser wants to make an amendment to put $7 million in, and the council agrees, we could do that?
If he wants to put a dollar amount into the ordinance as a proposed amendment, that's his prerogative.
I don't understand how you don't want to know what the total cost is before you decide how much money you want to put into that. That's asinine to me, but I will go on. I will go on. So I might be the only person who actually looked at the 330-page bond document of the bonds that were recently sold. And we're paying 5% interest at 25 years. The taxpayers were told during the voter referendum in 2022, 4.5% over 20 years. How much extra money is it costing the taxpayers for that?
Mr. Cushman, I'm in the same boat I was a moment ago. I'm not sure the
All right,
relevance.
forget it. I will withdraw that question. Ms. Comar talked about we don't have the financing for the athletic fields, right? Right? We all agree on that. Can you explain the concept of why we are using bond premium money? Are we using bond premiums to be able to finance those athletic fields?
Sorry, this isn't relevant to the OPEB amendment.
It is relevant
And
because.
I'm inclined to agree because
I'm gonna tell
as,
you-
as we both, myself and the administration mentioned earlier on, this is about the purpose of this, as was stated, was to pay towards the bond debt. It wasn't to pay for fields or anything like that in particular.
And you have an amendment that says after a certain amount of years, we have to take some money and put it back into the OPEB trust fund. But you don't know what year that's going to be because you don't know when the athletic fields are going to be built and you don't know when the reimbursement's going to come in. So you're going to put an amendment into law that says to do something and you don't even know what the hell the dates are when that has to happen.
So, right, you've described why I did not interrupt Ms. Komar is because she pointed out something that is relevant because we don't know a date certain as to when the project will be done sufficiently to trigger the reimbursement. We only know what the triggers are supposed to be, but we don't know the exact date.
And the finance director just said we have a building committee or something trying to figure out how they're going to build these athletic fields, right? And the thing is, you don't have any money, but I want to let everybody in this audience know what's going on. They are selling bonds at a premium, and maybe someone should describe what that means. They're getting millions of dollars of extra money from these bonds, but we're paying a higher interest rate. It's going to cost us more money in future years. And my question is, and you guys should want to know this, if we do this for the entire $325 million, they're going to get $25 million more. What are they doing with that money, and how much is it going to cost the taxpayers? Is this a back-end way to finance the athletic fields because the bond failed in February?
It is not.
Then why are you using bond premiums?
Because the way the state mandates it now. But also, this is not relevant to this OPEB amendment.
I know it's not relevant. I guess I'll be back during the budget hearings to talk about it because then that'll give you a lot more time to do your homework and answer the questions.
I mean, just in all fairness to the administration,
just for the council's
they answered.
knowledge, just
Pardon?
for the council's knowledge, legislation was written, bond premiums can't be used towards the project. So there will be no extra money from bond premiums going into the projects.
And I honestly, I didn't fully hear that, but I was told something at the same time elsewise. But I just wanted to be clear that regarding Mr. Cushman's comments, the administration did answer all your questions. I understand that not to your satisfaction, which you explained, which is fair.
Mr. President, I've had my light on for quite some time.
Yep, we're waiting to make sure we get everybody from the public. So is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak on this?
Mr. President, my question is quite relevant to the conversations that have already taken place.
So right now we're in public comment. That's how we said we were going to do
My
this
light was
part.
on before public comment.
You moved to open public comment, so I don't understand.
My light came on before anyone stepped up to the podium for public comment. And it was after, I believe, actually my light was on right after, I believe, Councilman Muto. But anyways, it's a really simple question.
So as the solicitor just stated to me, you weren't recognized, nor did I even know about the situation you're describing. We're in public comment right now. We're going to do public comment. When public comment's done, everyone can have at it and say whatever you want to say.
Fine.
I'm sorry, please just introduce yourself and
I'm Robin
go ahead.
Cardenas, and as you can see, I feel betrayed, and I can't have any trust in anything that's being said. There are no guardrails being set up for how long, how much, or anything else. There's no information being, submitted that we can see, and it seems a little shady. And that's why we can't be you can't be trusted. That's why we don't feel like we can trust you to do the right things, because these schools have been going on for years. And another question perhaps you could answer. As the school footage has been decreased, is the reimbursement being decreased also?
Miss, I apologize. I can't hear what you're saying. First, can you lean into the mic and say your name again, and then please state your question again so we can hear it?
Because the school footage has been decreased, is the ride reimbursement being decreased also?
I'm here to talk about this OPEB amendment, not about school funding.
Yeah.
Well, we need that because of the schools. It is relevant.
I'm here to amend the ordinance to fund the OPEB trust and that
Yeah.
alone.
The same
Okay.
thing we just got done talking
Well,
about with Mr.
regardless,
Cushman.
there are no guardrails on this amendment. I know there's no time, there's no money set out. There needs to be some guardrails, so, either we can say, yeah, that's a good idea, or no, it's not a good idea. You just can't let it go through without a timeline and a money dollar sign. It has to be some kind of endpoint to all of this. You have to do it that way. This city is a disaster financially. It has to change. It won't change quickly, but you got to start now.
Could you
Miss, can you just
spell
speak
your
your
last
name to the
name?
mic?
I
Yeah, we
didn't get her
still need
last
it.
name.
If at one point we could get your name, miss, because the clerk didn't catch it, and neither did I. You're gonna, all right, never mind. She's on it. Is anyone else, would anyone else like to speak for public comment? Would anyone else like to speak for public comment? And would anyone else like to speak for public comment? I can't tell if people are saying yes or they're blocking the sun. All right.
Don Fife. I got a stupid question. How much debt is the city of Warwick in as of today?
So we're in the same situation we were with the prior two speakers, but that's not particularly relevant to the item before us.
I didn't hear you.
So we can't really get into that because it's not on the agenda. It would be an open meetings violation. I'm adhering to council's advice.
Okay. When was Councilman Marola president of the council?
I think that's my answer is unfortunately the same as
Same
far
thing.
as unless there's something I'm missing that's not relevant to the item before us.
All right, thank you.
So is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak on the item before us? Is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak? Is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak? All right, is there any objection to closing public comment at this time then? And that's just for this item, we're not talking about the other two. All right, so seeing no objections, so closed. All right, so now Councilman Lattiser, your light is on and I can see that it's on.
Thank
Go
you.
for it.
Thank you.
And we're back on the proposed amendment, which hasn't been voted on, so it's just a proposed amendment for discussion.
So we just got done hearing a lot of public comment, and the questions evolved around RIDE. When is RIDE doing this? When is RIDE doing that? What is RIDE doing? What they are not doing? I would like to hear from RIDE because this is mostly about them. So is there anyone here tonight from RIDE to speak to this matter? Is there anyone here from RIDE to speak to this matter?
That seems like a no.
It sure does. It sure does. And I would think that RIDE would be present for this item, particularly speaking to the issues and the questions that are being asked.
I don't think RIDE is actually aware of our OPEB trust in any way.
And also this,
It affects our budget, absolutely, but it does not affect our OPEB
No,
trust.
I get that. I understand what
So I
our
wouldn't have
position-
asked them to be here because of that.
RIDE, I think, would have been very helpful to answer these questions that are being asked. When are the reimbursements? How does
But-
this pay-as-we-go thing? Does the pay-as-we-go, is that when it's done? Or is it a percentage of invoices submitted, et cetera, et cetera? But it doesn't seem that you thought that would have been prudent.
No, the funding of the OPEB trust, it has absolutely nothing to do with the Department of Education and
But
housing aid.
but it has a lot to do with how the money and when the money is going to be reimbursed, because RIDE is doing the reimbursement. Are they not?
If they were here tonight, they would tell you
Okay.
the project is upon substantial completion of the project.
Substantial completion of the project is a very open-end comment.
agree.
Especially considering when we're talking about the bond requirement of when both of the schools' fields are completed. We have had, or I should say, at least there has been conversation taking place that perhaps instead of doing 2 fields, we're going to do 1 super field. I don't know if that's going to come to be or not. How does that change things? These questions are something that you can't answer, the administration can't answer, I can't answer, but RIDE would be able to answer, and they're not here to do so.
Councilman Lasser, I understand your point, but currently even RIDE can't answer the question because we're talking about things that are not settled yet. Because as stated by the administration, what you're looking for is actively being worked on. There isn't a decision, a firm one on that.
So all this is speculative. No one seems to know for certain what we're going to get, what we're not going to get, when we're getting it, who's going to be issuing it, et cetera. So I don't even know why we're talking about it. Thank you.
Yep, to your point, the part that's speculative is the trigger for the repayment of the deferred payments. So understood. I follow your reasoning. Are there any other oh, yes, there are. Okay, I apologize. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. So for the administration, this might sound like a dumb question, but I'm going somewhere with it, I think. So if the city, for years into the future, we make all required payments towards the pensions, towards the OPEB trust, but revenues are not sufficient, and then next thing you know, funding balance goes to $0 and we can't fulfill our operating expenses, what happens to the city?
So again,
sorry.
Hold on. Again, we're back to, so we're going to be fair, because with Mr. Cushman, he wasn't relevant, and I think we're in the same boat here.
I'll withdraw that question. So more to the point, let's say that we're able to make the operating expenses and we're making all the required contributions to the pensions, but the OPEB trust payments have not been sufficient. And so then the amounts at that future date when we would be counting on that OPEB trust to have funds available, those funds aren't there, then, well, what happens?
The OPEB trust has been funded for a few years now, and my fiscal note said that we would be paying approximately $1.25 million next year to the OPEB trust, which would match employee contributions. So overall next year, we'll still put away $2.5 million. Currently, we're budgeted to pay $944,000 out of the general fund plus employee contributions. So we're still funding this trust, just less, sir.
And bear in mind, Councilman Ricks, focused on right now before us is the amendment rather than the whole concept. So I know you obviously want to talk about both, which is fine. Let's do just the amendment for now.
Well, specifically relating it to the amendment provides for 4 years afterwards. So it all goes into a matter of the timing. And I'm not disputing that OPEB trust payments would continue to be made, just $5 million fewer this coming year, and potentially up to $5 million, well, this year and the next 3 years after that under the ordinance. But anyways, thinking about the long-term impact of that, if hypothetically there were a future in which we were counting on that OPEB trust fund money to be available and it wasn't available, and okay, X dollars are due, we have Y dollars, Y is less than X, and checks or electronic payments, however it is, it's not sufficient, that would be a problem for the city, right? If the city were bouncing its checks.
The city is in no danger of bouncing checks. The OPEB trust money, it currently has $7 million in it. I cannot touch that money. Nobody can touch that money for anything other than paying or reimbursing. It's only for pension.
So I understand the point that you're making. We are not at risk of bouncing any checks tomorrow. Of course not. I'm not concerned about tomorrow. The reason that we're putting this money away in a trust so that it grows over time is so that it is out there in the future, because we're not just putting this money away for no reason at all. We're just putting it away because we like bank account balance to rise or whatever. No. I'm not talking about tomorrow. I'm talking about the distant future when we are counting on that money to be there. So please, I want us to be focused on what the purpose of all of this is. If it makes absolutely no difference in the world to anybody, whether we are saving money now or whether we can just make it up at an indeterminate date in the future because we develop immortality or somehow we develop some way to time travel, well, it's all nonsense. We're not talking as if, I don't know how many ways to put it, that the reason we save money today is so that it is available at a future date, and in between now and then, the money tends to grow due to investments. But if we don't put the money away today, then it's not going to be there and it's not going to grow. And I think that if the money isn't there and it doesn't grow, then there are going to be consequences when we want to go and use it in that distant future. So if the money isn't there in the distant future when we would rely on it and it's not there, is that a problem for the city?
We will still contribute.
Yeah, and point of clarification, Councilman Ricks, right now, the current method is to pay as you go. If for whatever reason the trust was not sufficient, we don't just not pay, we then pay as you go. So one way or another, the OPEB benefits get paid out. Your point is still valid that if the money's not there tomorrow, we're not building interest on it until it is there. Absolutely true. Agreed 100%. Are you trying to make some other point? If so, have at it.
Then a question. In that case, why do we have pension funds or an OPEB trust fund at all? Why don't we just pay it all as we go? And then magically in the future, the money will just be there magically. It's not like we need to invest it and allow it to grow over time. I don't know. If we can pay it all as we go, then why are we bothering saving to do the prudent thing of, having the money grow in the future? The point of all of this is that if we don't have pension funds, if we don't have an OPEB trust, if we are not saving now for the future, no, we cannot simply pay as we go. The money is not going to be there.
There's a point of clarification, Councilman Ricks. One, that's not true. And number two, and perhaps more importantly, again, try to focus on the amendment rather than the broader concept as a whole. And references to pension are not on topic. We're only talking about OPEB.
Okay, I'll focus very specifically on the amendment. Now, the copy that was erroneously distributed earlier, I didn't have a chance to really read it in quite the detail I would prefer. But in that moment it was handed to me, I noticed that instead of saying a maximum of 4 years, which the current draft does, it referred to 1 year. So in the back and forth that I was not privy to in the drafting of this amendment, it seems to me that there was a reason why it apparently an earlier draft was to require the repayment within 1 year, and yet the version before us now says 4 years. So as to the amendment, I would say that it is a point of major concern to me that the entire initial purpose of this legislation, 6-26, as I had understood it, is that it's simply a matter of us waiting for that reimbursement from RIDE, and then we take that money and we go ahead and we put it back into that OPEB trust and we let it grow and so on and so forth, because it's simply a matter of needing that reimbursement for RIDE. But if now we're talking about a 4-year period, then what on earth do we need that money so badly for up to 4 years before we can allow it to go into the market, into the investments, to grow and fulfill its purpose?
Is that a question for the administration? Do you want them to address that? Seems like a good question.
Question, yes.
All right.
Why 4 years? Flexibility. I mean, truly the intent is to put it over 4 years because we're delaying this, right? And we can re-amortize it to help kind of smooth out this whole crazy metric we have going on. In the budget process, out in fiscal year 29 or 30, or whenever, we can put in a budget that says we're going to put in $20 million, but we don't have to. Does that make sense? So, the wording says you may, but you don't have to. But you have to do it in 4 years.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me.
I mean, RIDE could come in and suddenly decide one day to give us partial reimbursements, and at which point we can present something different. At the moment, they're giving us one huge balloon payment with substantial completion. But I don't know what it's going to be in 2 years.
Yeah, so I mean, what makes sense to me is that 1 month ago, at the actuary presentation, that is directly on point here, because that actuary presentation told us that it's going to take a lot of discipline to fully get there, and then of course depends on what the competing resources and obligations look like. That was the quote, a quote from our actuary, that was referring to us increasing these contributions to the total funding of 2.5% every single year. It's going to take discipline to do that. The actuary didn't say it's going to take flexibility. You might decrease that line item by 9% 1 year, and then you put in 11.5% to make up for that 9% decrease. That's not what the actuary told us last month. So I think that we need to have discipline if we're going to reach our funding goals here, which have been just continuously pushed out, kick the can down the road for decades with this city. And as long as we're not putting that money in the market or investments to grow over time, we find ourselves digging ourselves deeper and deeper into the hole because we lack the discipline to make the hard decisions sooner rather than later. So I understand flexibility is very much desired, but flexibility is not what we need in the long term here to solve our problems. We need discipline in order to solve the problems. That's all for now. Thank you.
All right. I got a message to Councilman Lattiser's question, actually, from Mario Carreno at RIDE. The repayment begins at substantial completion of a project because we are only reimbursing the first 313 million. If you say the fields are in the last 37 million, then it wouldn't matter either way. In other words, it could make the timing of the completion of the fields irrelevant for the purposes of reimbursement. Irrelevant, that's correct. So rather than the question mark, it would be substantial completion of all the other stuff included in the 313 million, not the remaining 37 million.
So that varies from the bond referendum language, I believe. Because I believe it states that the reimbursement begins upon the completion of the schools, including the fields.
I'm just relaying what Ride said, and that's what
Okay.
you were seeking for.
Then
I'm sorry.
No problem, Mr. President, but now we're both on the record. Thank you.
All right, so the order I saw lights, Councilman Napa.
Thank you, Council President. I'm going to focus more on just the actual amendment here that's in front of us. So we had just a couple of specific words in here that are concerning to me. So I'll start with full state reimbursement, the operative full. Director, you just mentioned that RIDE could give partial reimbursement. So in that instance, then...
It doesn't seem likely to me, but I mean, stranger things have happened.
Okay, so that is a possibility that they begin partial, in which case that makes this amendment irrelevant until a full reimbursement begins. I don't know how I feel about that. And then just one point of clarification. In the budget year following the commencement of some sort of reimbursement. So if substantial completion is determined to be made in 2029, we're thinking, and then RIDE reimbursement comes in fiscal 29, that means that the repayment would begin in fiscal 30? Is that a correct interpretation of this? Where's our solicitor?
That's how I read it.
So the operative following the commencement of state reimbursement. So if, as the director stated, reimbursement would begin sometime in 2029, then the repayment schedule would start in fiscal 30. Is that?
It would be the succeeding budget year. So.
Okay. He said that it would begin, so replenishment of the OPEB fund would be the subsequent year. So if reimbursement started in 29, replenishment of what was deferred would start in fiscal 30 or so on and so forth. My last point of concern is the last line, repayment may occur over a maximum of 4 years. I think the operative may is concerning for me, and I would suggest possibly an amendment to make that a shall occur over a maximum of 4 years. The may occur over 4 years, I think it's being framed as kind of rear looking, is that the may occur over 4 years is sort of allowing the city to do it in a shorter period. However, the way I'm reading it is that it may occur over a maximum of 4 years, meaning pointing towards the end of that sentence that it may occur over 4 years, but we could do it over longer. So I think a shall occur over a maximum of 4 years still gives the city the right flexibility to do it in quicker time, in quicker fashion, but caps it at 4 years. The maximum, I don't think, because you may do the maximum, not shall do the maximum. That's my concern on that. So can we amend the amendment, or do we have to approve it and then amend it?
Thank you, Councilman. This was a point of clarification that I'm working on at the moment. There's two things to consider should this amendment move forward, and both relate to inserting the words shall to give that affirmative completion of the requirements here. So one would be following the word city. It says the city will begin repaying. I think we should consider making that a shall. And then is what in the last sentence, as you were just noting, that repayment shall be completed over a maximum of such time. Those would be, I think, things for everyone to consider to get this more precise.
So if we change that last sentence to repayment shall occur over a maximum of 4 years, it would require the city to repay that money firmly over 4 years, no longer than 4 years, but give the city still the flexibility to fund it quicker if we had the excess funds.
Based on that, I would recommend language that says repayment shall be completed over a maximum of 4 years rather than shall occur over. It would mandate a 4-year payback. So this would give you the flexibility to pay it off earlier.
How do we make that change? Do we have to propose that, or is that?
I would encourage further debate on the amendment, and then once debate has
Okay.
So we can revise it in one shot at that time. So I would say hold for now.
desire and what I would like to see is some further guardrails. As a member of our public has pointed out, that the guardrails should be, we need to firmly cap the city's timeline for kicking this can down the road at a specific time, which 4 years seems a reasonable amount of time to stretch that out. It's not super long. It's not too short where we'd be repaying $20+ million in 1 year. I think we can all agree that that would put too much of a financial strain on the city. But I would strongly consider or strongly urge my colleagues to consider putting a shall and capping it so that the city we have to make good on this repayment in a maximum of 4 years. I think that operative does that. If we have the excess funds, we certainly could do it sooner. The other point I just want to circle back to is full state reimbursement concerns me because if the state decides they're not fully reimbursing, it eliminates what we're doing here. So I think commencement of state reimbursement and 86ing the full is more palatable for this councilman at least. So if anyone else would like to comment on those concerns.
So Councilman, the only thing I bring up as far as the partial repayment thing, bear in mind, assuming some version of this passes, regardless of what that looks like, when it comes time for our budget meetings, this discussion will happen again as far as, hey, there's this chunk of money we're going to put over here instead of over here. So that'll be before us at that time. So if, for instance, if next year it turns out RIDE chose to give us $10 million early reimbursement, we could say, hey, that money that you want to go from here to here, we don't want to do that because RIDE gave us a partial reimbursement. So you don't need to do that this time.
So that, I think that speaks directly to my point, is if they do a partial reimbursement at any time, we couldn't use that according to this. I mean, I guess we could as part of a budget, but then this ordinance wouldn't kick in.
I'm just throwing it out there just to keep in mind. It doesn't mean your prospect of amending it accordingly is invalid. So still potentially viable.
Okay, thank you.
So, all right, we got two, Councilman Gebhardt and then Councilman Muto. What happened? What did I miss? Oh, I apologize. I looked right and then I looked left. Councilman Muto, sorry. You were first.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to make sure everyone is aware of what the trade-off costs are here. When we're looking at making this decision, we are looking at an opportunity cost of our future value of our money. We are looking at paying a 5% debt with a 5.9% offset, which is our return by our actuary. So we're paying one credit card of 20% to another one that's 18%. So number one, that is a terrible way of managing money. Number two, let's look at future opportunity costs. What does $5 million, just once, $5 million look like in 30 years, that maturity value? Have you done those numbers, Finance Chief, of what is our opportunity cost if we defer the $5 million without interest for what that would look like if we paid that $5 million?
The actuary uses 6%, so $300,000.
Yeah. So for $5 million, no, for $600,000, how are you?
$5 million, 6%, $300,000.
Yeah, but the future value, what that $5 million is going to cost
I
in
didn't
the
compound
future.
that over 30 years, but that is a
Well,
one-year
I
mark.
did.
Yeah.
I did. Okay, so for 2 years, for $10 million only, we're looking at, for $10 million, we're giving up approximately $49 million in the future. If we go 3 years and it's paid back within 3 years.
Point of order, Councilman, just so I can understand your math. How long are you?
Well, I'm doing what the actuary, so it's a 30-year OPEB program. We're in it 2 years, so it's maturity in 28 years.
So your math is based on a 28-year projection?
Yes.
Thank you.
So just, and it's ballpark. I just want people to know the proportion that we're looking at. So let's just assume a 3-year, this is what we're looking at, 3-year, $15 million. At that time, that value is approximately $75 million. So we're trading off 15 million for 75. Now, if we take the payment as an equal payment for 4 years after that, that number is a staggering $130 million. So we're trading off $15 million present value to about $130 million at the maturity of this. So when we're doing this decision, it has consequences. When, in fact, have we looked at other options such as, the budget? We're looking at about 1.3% of our budget to make up that $5 million. I don't know any household that can't find $1.3 million to pay their extra higher level electric bill or gas bill. What's that? Oh, percent. I'm sorry. 1.3%. So all I'm saying is I'm not comfortable paying, deferring bills at a higher opportunity cost of 5% to 5.6, or your point, 6%. That even makes the math worse. And then not paying the opportunity costs, we're just paying the principal back, and we're shorting our future value of these dollars. Whether or not it's a pay-as-you-go plan, an OPEB plan, whatever it is, we're still talking about $130 million future cost, future value for $15 million. To me, I can't make that math justify at this point. Just make it make sense to me.
As another point of order, I think I can do this. Councilman, were those numbers, is that the delta from when you put back the money?
Yes.
So that's $10 million over 28 years, less the...
Yeah, because the
compounded-
paybacks staggered over the last, so I just made it easy. I divided the 15 million, divided it by 4, and the payback would be in each subsequent year. So again, it's ballpark, it's back of the envelope.
So
Let's say it's $100 million.
If you added that $10 million back in the 4-year repayment, at the end of the 4-year repayment plan, and then we amortize that across 20 years, right? So then we would have to take the delta of your 28-year amortization of -10 and your re-amortization of putting that money back in over 20.
Well,
and that's your true loss
it's a true loss, yes.
Right. So those numbers that you just gave out are not the actual true loss.
Yeah. So I'm not the finance person for the city.
I want to make sure. I mean, I think you're bringing up valid points, and I'm not trying to be argumentative. I want to make sure that I'm understanding the math.
Yeah.
So that is not the actual true loss. We'd have to delta back what we're gaining. So substantially lower than those numbers, but not. But I mean, it's not nothing. We're talking about millions of dollars.
I would propose we table this till we actually get the numbers that are costing this.
Okay. I appreciate the work, Councilman. Thank you.
Yep. The other part is the flexibility as far as the reimbursement goes. Why are we giving the flexibility of when we get the money back from the state? I'd be more comfortable if we put something in there that has to do with we can't use the reimbursement from the state, no matter if it's partial or full, for anything but reimbursements, and then over and beyond that. So that would be an amendment that I would add. That way, that money that's received for the purpose of paying the interest on the loan is diverted first to paying back the OPEB.
I think it's pretty clear that's the intent.
The intent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems very clear to me that's the intent of this amendment.
Yeah.
And I hope it's clear to
I
whoever.
don't
makes
work
the
in
dec-
intents. I want to work
Yeah.
in absolutes. And
Yeah.
if we could do some absolutes, and this is a big problem with the city. And if we're too vague and too squishy with this numbers, that putting better absolute, this isn't a hard economic or financial problem to calculate within some constraints. All we're asking for is tell us what the trade-offs are. Tell us what the cost is. And tell us, when you get this money back, first bills paid is the OPEB to reimburse. So if we're using and leveraging the OPEB, and the whole idea is we don't have the funds to do it right now, but we will have the funds when the state pays us back. It only makes perfect sense as that money is allocated to that reimbursement. So I'll yield my time.
Alrighty, just give me one moment, please. I just got to keep track of everybody. That's an important point to dovetail with Councilman Mutos, because he's right as far as that there is a cost to this proposal. If we, for instance, took the money from the rainy day fund, that money will not obviously accrue interest because it will be gone. So similarly, there would be a cost associated with that, albeit not as much because it's a lower interest rate. It's not as good as the interest rate afforded to the trust. Not to mention the costs as far as a bond rating or a credit hit. All right, so the next up is Councilman Gebhardt, followed by, unless there's somebody else new, then it will go to Councilman Riggs.
I just had a couple quick ones on things that came up. I just had a couple quick ones on things that came up. I do have some more detailed thoughts for when we get to the heart of the matter, but thank you. Good to, we have a bunch of lawyers in the room, but I appreciate the feedback on the word may and shall. I think that is important, and it speaks directly to the intent of why this amendment is on the floor, because the original proposal provided absolutely no repayment plan at all. And to what several other commenters and colleagues have said, we want to give the city the flexibility to operate the finances of the city within guardrails, right? And while we'd love to all live in absolutes, we're dealing with unknowns. We're dealing with a project that this council and the mayor and the city and the administration don't control, right? We're partners in that process, but we don't control the construction timeline. We don't know when it's going to be done. We know when they tell us it will be done, and we are watching it closely. However, those are not absolutes. We need to give the city the toolkit in order to be responsible. And the reason we're here tonight is that over the next 5 years, we have a challenge in making these short-term interest payments prior to the school being completed. And the city and the council, hopefully tonight, will be supportive of the plan, because the reason we brought the plan, or the reason the plan has been brought forward, is to not put the short-term challenge completely on the backs of the taxpayer. Now, of course, every dollar that comes in and out is a dollar of the taxpayer. Absolutely. But without an alternative plan, we need to raise taxes to a substantially higher level this year to cover short-term interest that is being reimbursed in 4 years. Is this the perfect plan? No. But does it provide some relief in a time when folks need relief? I filled up my gas tank the other day. It was $4.42 a gallon. People are feeling that. We are trying to be responsible with the tax levy and the tax rate. And this is part of it. Is there a trade-off? Absolutely. Are the numbers of the trade-off what you have just heard? Absolutely not even close. that the back of the napkin, we should get a new napkin, because that is not even in the neighborhood of what the cost is. But there is, of course, a cost. This is a trade-off. But the money is being returned to us, reimbursed to us by the state at the substantial completion of the project. We do not need to raise taxes in order to cover the short-term borrowing costs when we know we will recoup those monies. Sorry, I'm going on and on here. I did think about an analogy, Councilman Ricks, while you were talking, and I know you have, since I arrived in this room, have been the most passionate about the city getting its house in order and making sure that we have the funds to pay for the benefits and the retirement plans that we made a commitment to the employees and to the retirees that would be there. And I know why you're passionate about it, because you don't want to be here or be looking back on the day when those can't be paid, right? I don't think any of us, none of us want that. We may differ in our beliefs about how the plan that we are currently participating in gets us there, but we all made that plan together. Maybe, I mean, we have 4 new folks who weren't here at the outset, 2021, 2022, when we made the conscious decision to put the OPEB trust in place. But it answers, one of the biggest kind of elephants that's been in the room since I've been following, and many of the folks in this room have been following, and it is a step towards being responsible with the long-term obligations that we have. You're seeing the only reason we're having this conversation is that 30 years ago, someone who sat in our exact same seats, maybe the same chair, made a push to make sure that our pension plans were solvent. We are in the enviable position across the state of having pension plans that are not fully funded, but are funded at an exceptional level. And because of the level that they're funded at, the actuary has told us, hey, you don't need to put nearly as much money into those pension plans anymore, and you can do something else with it. And what we're choosing to do with it this year is to give it back to everyone in this room. You could say you were getting a little wound up, Councilman, and the passion is coming out, and I understand it. And, we could all, I go to my job every day. I get paid every couple weeks. I could put 100% of every paycheck into my 401k, and I could retire a hell of a lot sooner than I'm likely to. But if I starve in the process, is that a good financial decision? And I think that's what we're talking about, right? We don't want to starve people while we're trying to save money. And we have the opportunity here to provide a little bit of relief that does come at a cost, but over time we will make it up. And the point of this amendment is to tell the city, we are serious about the plan, we are serious about the path we are going down, and we are committed to saving money on a 30-year plan to make sure that we have those funds to pay for the benefits that we have promised those retirees. And that's the whole conversation here tonight. And so I probably said all the things I intended to say later, so maybe you won't hear from me again, but I urge your support on both the amendment and on passing this important ordinance. So thank you.
All right, so let's see, we got lights. Councilman Ricks, how about it? So Councilman, you have 1 minute and 27 seconds left.
Thanks. I'll try to be brief here. Famous last words. So I would analogize this not to a matter of investing from one's paycheck, but to what I often do at my law firm of if I receive a settlement check, guess what? Not all of that money is mine. What I do is I immediately disperse those funds as soon as that payment clears. So here comes, for instance, that reimbursement for ride to the tune of all of those millions of dollars. I think that my clients would be upset with me if I were to say, okay, I just need a flexibility of up to 4 years to disperse your funds. Well, that's not direct. That's not entirely fair, and I'm sorry for that. But that is the analogy that I had been thinking of here. So when it comes to deferring these payments, deferring, taking that money and putting it back to where really it should be in the first place, ideally, being invested, we really should be having as instantaneous a turnaround as we possibly can. Additional flexibility is the opposite of discipline. And if we don't have discipline, we're not going to make these financial goals. Now, part of what was infuriating to me earlier was the whole notion of...
Councilman, you're out of time, so if you could just wrap up that
If
sentence.
I may have 2 minutes.
So, yep, so we got to do the whole thing. So someone's got a motion for it? So is there any
So
objection
moved.
for, all right, is there any objection to Councilman Ricks having 2 more minutes? All right, no objection, so be it. Another 2 minutes, Councilman.
Thank you. So 2 quick points I'll try to make. First point is that what's really infuriating to me as part of this too is that the notion of we can just pay as we go in the future. No. We try to do that in the future when the money's not there. The entire reason why we are saving money now, trying to invest and gain on that, is because if we were to try to pay in the future, that is called a financial crisis, and we would have zero flexibility to kick the can down the road any further. I'm also just concerned here when it comes to not looking at this as the entire picture. Now, the analogy of the Titanic, it's been a little bit overplayed over time, but as the survivors of the Titanic put it, there wasn't initially any real, noticeable impact. There wasn't that, here I am paraphrasing it a bit, but there wasn't any visible damage above the waterline. But you know what? You have one piece of that one big piece of that piece of the city's finances that suddenly has a big old gaping hole in it. We're all in one boat here. So if the boat goes down because one piece of it has a big gaping hole in it, well, the fact that the rest of it seems fine, that's not going to count for a heck of a lot. That's all.
With 15 seconds to spare, Councilman. Solicitor?
Yes, one point of clarification for the administration. On line 15 of page 2, there's a qualifying language full before reimbursement, and then that language is repeated as part of this amendment. I believe that could lead to open-ended interpretations. If the intent is to say when the reimbursement begins, we should probably remove the words full in those 2 places. Is that a fair?
That's fine.
Thank you.
While we have you there, is there any objection to the suggestion made by Councilman Napa regarding the 2 shalls?
I could do
No.
one.
Pardon?
Oh, you were asking.
Oh, so, all right. So as far as logistically,
We could try this through to do one technical amendment if everyone wants to try following. If not, we could try it in portions. The amendments that were discussed here to the amendment, so a second degree amendment, I would recommend that we remove the words full in the 2 places that they appear. On page 2, line 15, in the original new language, it says the state begins full reimbursement of the debt service. We would delete that word full, and then as part of the amendment that you see in the budget year following the commencement of full state reimbursement, delete that full as well. And then at the end of that line, the city changed the will to shall begin repaying the OPEB trust. And then change the last sentence to delete the words may occur and replace it with shall be completed. So that would remove the words full, change the will and the mays to shalls, and ensure that payment begins upon the state reimbursement and is completed over a maximum of 4 years after repayment begins.
So is there any objection to the technical amendments as provided by the solicitor? So yes is an objection because you want to do, go for it.
I'd like to change or add to the max of 4 years, but as I'd like to put something in there that has to do with when we receive the reimbursement from the state, from RIDE, that it gets paid to the OPEB at that time. The reason is if we're saying that this is the reason. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to explain to put it into that. So what I'm looking at is to put the language in there, when we get the reimbursement, that within we could set a time that dollar goes directly to the payment, and we don't hold that dollar for something else.
That's the deferred amount, correct? Not the full reimbursement. the
Yeah,
city-
as we're coming in. So for example, if we get $2.5 million from RIDE, that $2.5 million goes to pay back the OPEB without holding it. We say it's for this purpose, let's use it for that purpose. And that would make me feel a lot more comfortable.
So Councilman, if I'm following you, that would mean the last sentence you either want to you actually just want to remove because you don't want to have a cap of over a maximum of 4 years. You just want, hey, once you get the money, put it here.
That's it.
Okay, I understand. He's pondering.
Council President, could I ask a question of the administration just to clarify what Councilman Muto's request is?
Sure.
I thought my understanding was that we would be doing two things as part of this process, is one, deferring OPEB while still also drawing down fund balance. Is that correct? Over the next several years, we're going to be deferring some money here and also drawing down fund balance to pay back some money?
Possibly. I mean, the 27 budget does have the use of fund balance, yes.
Okay, so then my suggestion would be, instead of just strictly limiting it to OPEB, and this is just a suggestion, that we sort of look at where we drew down. Was it OPEB plus fund balance, and how do we divvy up, how do we prioritize one over the other, or which way to go? But I just want to keep that in mind prior to strictly saying it has to be used for X.
No, that's a great point, and you guys are the lawyers, so I'll let you guys figure out the wording.
Yeah, and I'll reiterate what I mentioned before as far as each year and when it comes time to do the budget, this can be that exact situation as far as, hey, we're not going to do it this year, or we're going to do it less this year, or we're going to do some from the fund balance, some from this. That would undoubtedly be part of the discussion each year, regardless of tonight, as far as what language we go with, if we go with it. Are you still buffering? He's still buffering. All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Councilman Muto's sounded pretty good. Can I just hear it one more time? Because I didn't hear what.
What I'm looking to do is, and I'll just use round numbers. We take 5 million from OPEB and 2 million from the drawdown. We get 7 million back on a reimbursement. 5 million goes back to OPEB. 2 million goes back to the. Obviously, it's not as simple as that, but what I'm looking for is,
I get the gist of it, and I think that's what we're all looking for. Because, as I said, when we get the the balloon payment, we really want to build the fund balance back up. So yes, we're on the same page.
Cool. You guys figure out the language.
Councilman Gebhardt?
The only point I would make is, and I know this is hard because this is kind of our first attempt to weigh in on this, and we want to solve all the problems of the future. I like the idea of sort of first in, first out in terms of stacking the payments. That said, I would just say we may want to just confine this ordinance to sort of the outer bounds of the control we want to put into ordinance, as this is more difficult to I guess what I'm saying is don't bake all the rules into the ordinance, as things may change over time. So try to get at least build the guardrails, but don't chart the entire course in the ordinance. So I think conceptually, the first in, wherever we took the money from first, pay it back first as the monies come in. But enumerating too many other conditions into this ordinance may get in our way of a better solution down the road, I guess is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and to your point, that's actually how we got here in the first place, because we attempted to chart the course so far in advance, and we didn't realize this would happen. So, Councilman Napa?
Just more of a clarification point as process moves as we get through this. We're approving the amendment would be the first vote, I'd assume, right? And then, or shooting it down one way or the other. And then we're left with whatever ordinance proposed as amended or originally as presented. Is there another opportunity to discuss then the merits of the entire as amended, in addition to any public comments, so they can speak on whatever amendments we may or may not end up with? Or are we voting and then voting again?
So first, the vote would be on the proposed amendment, and then after that, the ordinance would stand before us as amended, still for discussion. So we can discuss it whatever length you want at that point, as regarding the full scope. Just like how we were asking Councilman Ricks, hey, limit your topic to just the amendment. And once we get to that point, there's no reason to limit. Now it'll be everything.
Okay, just 'cause I think it might be helpful to direct some questions perhaps through Chairman Galligan, who just arrived, relative to some of those issues about reimbursements and timelines and such.
Oh, so you're also asking about public comment being
Correct.
reopened?
Yes.
So that's, my knee-jerk thought is I prefer not, from the perspective of how we normally handle this, because once we start doing it that way, arguably, well, there's no reason not to do it that way every time we have this situation. That being said, the countervailing fact is that he might be able to speak to this matter from the perspective of just like how the mayor and Lynn and Bill all speak to it. I will say, though, I think we got at least the main answer we needed from, that was from School Committee Member Testa, who stated what Mario Carreno from RIDE had mentioned. I think we got that answer. I can't speak to if there's anything else, though, that might be relevant, so I'm not going to pretend to know the answer to that. But at the end of the day, it's up to the council in that regard, whether or not to suspend the rules. I cannot decide that unilaterally. Councilman Gebhardt, are you up? Never mind. You're just messing with me. Okay. Solicitor, are you still buffering?
So we have a handful of potential amendments to the amendment. We could discuss them individually or try and insert one omnibus amendment in its place. I defer to the members of how they would like to try this.
So just for my own 2 cents, it sounds like, based on what everyone said, there's a general agreement with the approach, including the administration regarding all the proposed amendments. So
Yeah,
if we could at least get all those on the record, and then we can talk about the thing as a whole, because maybe people don't want it anyway, which is fine. It's your prerogative, but at least we can get the whole darn thing before us.
I'd be good with withdrawing my original amendment and replacing it with the amendment with the collaborative feedback from the session, if that helps.
Okay, Councilman Gephardt withdraws the original amendment and inserts the following new amendment that would need a second. So the new amendment would, so let's just work with the original C. Delete the word full, page 2, line 15. Now, the new language that would be inserted would read, in the budget year following the commencement of state reimbursement for debt service, the city shall repay the OPEB trust for any previously deferred amounts upon receipt of a reimbursement.
Mr. Solicitor, that also includes removing the term full from line 15. Is that correct?
Yes, the sentence that I read would be the only new language being inserted.
Motion to move favorable action as amended.
All right, motion made and seconded. So is there any comments or questions on the proposed amendment? All right, so seeing none, the clerk will call the roll on just on the proposed amendment. That we'll still have the whole thing before us as amended if said amendment passes.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuise?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser? Mr. Muto?
Yes.
Mr. Napa?
Yes.
Mr. Riggs?
Yes.
9 yes to amend.
All right, so it now stands before us as amended. So discussion, if there is any. Councilman Riggs.
An amendment to the legislation as amended. So looking at the phrase, begin repaying the OPEB trust for any previously deferred amounts, and before the comma, I would, in my amendment that I am moving, would be to insert the following language. Together with an amount representing 6.9% compound.
Lost your mic.
Your mic stopped working. I'm sorry, Councilman. So we last heard you together with the amount.
Thank you. Together with an amount representing 6.9% compound annual gains on any such previously deferred amounts, comma, and then pick up with the rest.
Would you be open to proceeding how we handled the prior portion where we discussed that concept before we actually jump into, all right, let's move second and vote? All right, appreciate it. So just everyone keep that in mind as part of this discussion, because we're discussing this as a whole, just like we did with the prior portion. So I didn't see the order. I saw your light first. So Councilman Lattiser, hopefully I got that right.
Just a clarification question. So what we're going to be voting on is the proposed amendment on the floor now. That will move us into full discussion on the presentation as amended, correct?
So we're currently before us is the PCO6-26 as amended.
Right. And then we begin discussion on the entire package as amended.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Solicitor, do we need to have a formal motion so we can open discussion? Because Councilman Ricks agreed to hold off on his amendment.
If there's no amendment before us, we're back on the item as amended.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So we'll be taking additional comments on the whole package.
We're doing that right now.
Okay.
No further amendments were on the item that we just amended. Okay. So this is potential action.
Councilman Gebhardt? Maybe.
Move favorable action. But I'll make a brief comment on what Councilman Ricks brought up. The way I look at this, and hopefully I got to this in my comments, that sometimes I lose track, but this is an imperfect situation. In the ideal case, we would not be deferring funds from the OPEB trust, and we would be putting every last penny we can squeeze into the trust as soon as possible. However, we do not live in a perfect world, and we have a use for these funds that provides relief to the taxpayers in a time when we need it. Including in this ordinance that the city repay the compounding interest over the period of time. Past performance is not an indicator of future gains, right? So we don't know that 6.9% or whatever we put in here is the actual number. It could be substantially worse. It could be substantially better, unclear. But if we're gonna put ourselves, all of us, the city and the taxpayers, on the hook to repay with compounded interest, we might as well not do this at all. Just bite the bullet today, raise everyone's taxes to the maximum, and let the compounding happen on its own. I don't think that is the prudent move here. I think we are acknowledging that we are sacrificing some long-term gains, solving a problem that's existed for, I don't know, the length of the city's history, or whenever we, first included benefits as a retirement, as a part of a retirement package. This problem has existed since then. We have made great strides in addressing it. This is a little bit of a setback in terms of addressing it, but it does solve other challenges that we have directly in front of us right now. So I would just suggest that we not include that language in this amendment. I think we together all got to a good place, something that we're comfortable with. Nothing in this ordinance, in the updated language, prevents us from expending monies beyond what we are pledging here, what we deferred, into the trust. So should the city find itself in a beneficial position, I would think at that point it would be best to return some of those funds to the taxpayer. But we could have that debate at that time, right? Because the taxpayer is on the hook for these funds, whether they come due now or they come due 50 years from now, we're paying it one way or another. And the whole reason for the trust is that the benefit of time and market makes a dollar today worth multiple dollars down the road. But I don't think we should handcuff ourselves to that in this amendment. I think it sort of defeats the purpose or the spirit of why we're working on this tonight. Those are just my comments there. Thank you.
All right, so Councilman Napa, you'll be next. Just one moment. All right, how about it? Sorry. Oh, okay, you bamboozled me. Councilman DeLuise?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would agree with Councilman Gephardt, but I just have a question for the mayor. Might be a little bit off topic, and I think a lot of people in the audience are concerned. With the schools, and is there a plan in place that is going to fund the fields for the schools? Is there a plan in the new budget to?
Let me answer quick before they Currently, all the athletic fields are budgeted for other than the baseball fields. That's the
I think we
current
took
plan,
advantage
correct?
of the solicitor talking. I'm not sure this is on topic.
That's why I tried to answer quickly.
All right. Thank you. I apologize. We got to be fair because we pointed out for Mr. Cushman and for Councilman Ricks. So if you have an on-topic question, please have at it. But otherwise, if it's not on the agenda, so we can't deviate.
No, I understand that, but I've only used up about 30 seconds, so thank you. Thank you for the latitude.
It was a noble effort. All right. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I mean, really, the reason that I would propose inserting that language as a motion here is because the city actuary assumes projected 6.9% compounding returns. Well, it's never going to be exactly that. And for the sake of an amendment, sake of an ordinance like this, I didn't want to overcomplicate it with, greater than, less than, okay, calculate the returns that the rest of the fund had over X period of time. Just becomes quite unwieldy. But beyond that, I would be highly confident that even if we included that language in the ordinance, we're still not going to actually follow it. However, if we were to include that language in the ordinance, then at least when we don't follow it, we have to have a hearing and have to explain to the public, the retirees, the employees, why we failed to follow it. So, and the reason I say that is because my timeline here might be a little bit off. I believe that the problem of underfunding benefits began in 1971. Then in the 1990s, we had the 40-year plan. Then in 2023, we abandoned the 40-year plan to switch as pay-as-you-go. And here in 2026, we're looking at further adjustments. So as I see it, the more recently, if you kind of picture that as a spiral, the spiral is getting tighter. And so with all due respect to everyone on this city council, who I know want all of this to succeed, of course, obviously, I just have doubts about the city being able to have that level of discipline here in increasingly difficult financial times. Again, it's not a matter of anyone at fault here on this city council in particular. It's not even with the administration. It's a matter of these are problems that are compounding over time, and the further along we go, the harder it is for anyone, no matter how good their intentions, no matter how qualified, really anybody is going to have harder times digging out of a deeper hole. So really, I see that additional language in there as a matter of, okay, let's get back to where, at least set the goal of getting back to where the actuary just last month was telling us that we need to be, and we need to be disciplined. And maybe not at this last actuarial presentation, but certainly at the one before, I do recall there was a discussion about a stress test at 5.9% returns instead of 6.9% returns. So, if certain periods of time, we are not increasing our contributions by that recommended increasing annual contributions by the recommended 2.5%, but instead decreasing by 9%, well, that has obviously an impact. So that's the greater logic with why that number. And sincerely, the way that things are going, I don't expect us to actually comply with that, but at least there would be some semblance of accountability when we don't. Thank you.
All right, just a brief note. According to the actuary report, the rate of return projected is 6%. Based on what I'm seeing, it says investment rate of return 6%. That being said, a request was made to have a brief recess. Does anyone have any objection to that? All right, so we'll say 5-minute recess, please.
I object.
All right, first things first, we're going to cut to Solicitor Walsh. And bear in mind, the acoustics in this room are awful. So even if you think you're talking quietly, the way it ends up echoing, it makes it hard for us to hear over here. I know it doesn't sound like it makes sense, but I promise you, the acoustics are basically cursed. Solicitor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr. President. Upon formally integrating the amendments made, I would respectfully suggest to the council they can more precisely effectuate the intent that was just voted on by making a few changes. This would be the deletions of certain words and inserting another, but effectively it would change the last sentence that we just amended to read, in the budget year following state reimbursement for debt service, the city shall repay the OPEB trust for any previously deferred amounts received. The reason for this is there's a current conflict about using the terminology in the budget year following and the language that we just inserted upon receipt of a reimbursement. This makes clear that in the subsequent budget, the money, any money that comes in would go back to repaying whatever is left owed that was deferred. So it just refines that scope. Happy to read it again. In the budget year following state reimbursement for debt service, the city shall repay the OPEB trust for any previously deferred amounts received. So we're deleting the words the commencement of and upon receipt of a reimbursement and inserting the word received. Happy to answer any questions on the technical amendment.
So does anyone have any questions regarding what the solicitor has suggested? All right, so in that case, does anyone have any objection to adopting that as presented? So then we can move on to Councilman Ricks's request. All right, so can we just say so accepted?
If it's unanimous.
It appears to be.
Is there no objection to adopting the technical amendment?
All right, so no objections, so ordered. All right, so now, Councilman Ricks, you have a proposed amendment. Do you want it to be 6.9 or 6? Because if it says 6.9 in that report and I missed it, please tell me, because I'm not suggesting you're wrong. That's the one I saw. So if it's somewhere else, 6.9, that's fine. At the end of the day, it's your amendment. It's your number. You pick.
Yeah, the 6.9% is what I had seen in the various presentations. That's I was pretty sure that that was the number that the city has used for many years for those on those presentation slides, and I had double checked that. So I would be more comfortable with that, especially considering that the 5.9% returns is considered the so-called stress test.
Great, no, that's perfectly fine. It's like I said, your amendment, so don't let me dictate. So can you state your full amendments? That way it gives somebody the opportunity to second if they would so choose to do so.
Thank you. After that phrase, the phrase ending in any previously deferred amounts, adding in the following language. Together with an amount representing compound interest at 6.9% annually on such previously deferred amounts, comma, as confirmed by the actuary.
Councilman, do you have this written down, and could you send that to me if you have it written or electronically?
I could send a quick email.
And is there a second regarding this proposed amendment? Seconded by Councilman Lattiser for discussion. Well, sorry, seconded by Councilman Lattiser, so now we can discuss. Sorry, I wasn't trying to flavor the second. All right, so for discussion, Councilman Ricks's amendment, proposed amendment stands before us. Does anyone wish to speak on this? The mayor has gestured at you, Chief of Staff.
Bill Vicente, Chief of Staff again. I just reiterate what Councilman Gephardt said. I mean, at this point, if you're putting compounding interest on top of the amount, the principal amount, it kind of defeats the purpose to save the taxpayers. You're pushing it down the road, and it's going to cost the taxpayers more towards at the end of when the reimbursements stop. So this whole compounding interest, the administration's okay with the principal, but compounding interest or interest on the principal, it defeats the purpose of, you know, the relief that we're looking for and the flexibility we're looking for.
All right, anyone else wish to speak on this proposed amendment? All right, so for my own 2 cents, I'm inclined to agree, because I don't want to be back here having the same conversation because we were overzealous in our guardrails. So clerk will please call the roll regarding the proposed amendment made by Councilman Ricks. This is for a motion for favorable action. So a yes vote means you agree with the proposed amendment.
Mr. Sinapi?
No.
Mr. DeLuise? No. Mr. Foley?
No.
Mr. Gephardt?
No.
Mr. Kirby?
No.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. Muto?
No.
Mr. Napa?
No.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
2-7, motion fails.
All right, we're back to the PCO6-26 as amended. And the last amendment, just so everyone is clear, it was the technical amendment that Solicitor Wall suggested, and we adopted, given that there was no objection. My understanding is that a member of the school committee is here to speak regarding some of the questions and concerns on the timing of things. So, School Committee Chair Galligan. And you're gonna have to turn that on if you know how. If you don't, we can do it.
Well, I'm not here to formally speak, but I am here to absolutely answer a couple questions after watching from home. And I do apologize to members of this honorable body for my attire tonight in these council chambers. I certainly respect all of you. Sean Galligan, Ward 2, Chair of the Warwick School Committee, also Warwick's whipping boy.
So bear in mind, this isn't addressing what you just said. I didn't mention it yet. Make sure you confine your remarks to not as a member of the public, but just as your capacity as chair of the school committee.
I will reply as you guys so request to the best of my ability.
Councilman Napa?
Oh boy. That's where
Chairman, thank you for making yourself available tonight. So I just had some questions that I think you could clarify for this body and for members of the public that are still here and possibly watching from home. There's been a lot of discussion about the substantial completion and as it relates to when the state will start to reimburse either partially or in full.
Yes, sir.
And there's, at least I am a little bit confused as to what, in your opinion, or with any information that you may have from RIDE, what is considered substantial completion so we can sort of wrap our minds around what that might look like and when we might be expecting reimbursement to begin?
Great question, Counselor. Substantial completion is not defined by a particular date. Substantial completion is defined by based on when the facility is occupied. It does not be, it's not defined, but based on the athletic fields being completed, because we are only reimbursed the first $313 million, $37 million relative to fields and abatement and demolition of the existing structures are not factored in there. So substantial completion, in my opinion, and that of the Chief Operating Officer, RIDE, would be when the facilities are occupied and our existing facilities are demolished. There's no defined date to that. It's important to note that there are milestones here relative to this project, and we are expected to hit those milestones. We can't drag this on forever because state funds are associated with this. So it's not like we can go out to 2032 and then you go, whoa, we've hit substantial completion. That's when we'll reimburse.
And so Director Prodger had mentioned she was expecting that substantial completion would be reached maybe sometime in 2029. Is that a accurate characterization? And I won't hold you to this. I don't want you to think that I'm going to throw this back in your face later. But is that a fair estimate of time, or are your project timelines quicker, later?
I would say that would be a fair estimate at this time. We anticipate the schools to be occupied in 2028 and athletic facilities being completed and available for use in 2029. But again, to the statement of the Chief Operating Officer of RIDE, for reimbursement, 2029 would be when the fields are available. 2028 would be when the schools are available for occupancy. So I would say there's a bit of vagueness here based on RIDE. I would defer to bond counsel. If I were sitting in your seats this evening, if I were in your position and I had to vote on a situation of this magnitude, I would highly advise you guys to consider speaking with bond counsel and going, can you clear up this ambiguity here as to when the reimbursement would hit? What are the milestones specifically? Is it finishing the fixed structures that the children will go into? And then is milestone 2 demolition of the existing structures? And then is phase 3 completion of the athletic fields? We now know from the Chief Operating Officer of RIDE, it's not the construction of the athletic fields that would constitute, to his exact words, substantial completion of the project is what I have in writing. So, 2028 is when you can possibly consider substantial completion of the project, when Pilgrim and Tollgate are demolished.
Thank you, Chairman. That's all I have. Thank you.
No problem, Councilman.
Thank you for coming out and appreciate you.
Yeah,
coming
anything
to
for
make
this
yourself
city. Anything for this city.
Councilman Gebhardt.
I actually don't have any questions for you, but I did want to just say thank you for coming down here and for how invested you are in this project for the kids and for the amount of time and effort and energy that you put into all the work that you do. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And if I could respond to that, Council President, I respect that before you 9 honorable members of this council tonight, you guys have a difficult decision. You're playing either the long game or the short game. You're very much in the same position as all the other locally elected officials in the city. So I respect the position that you guys are in tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to speak, make sure that the record is straight, and just know that, as far as the school department and the school committee goes, we're continuing to move forward. We're excited for the 3rd week of May to hopefully hoist the final steel beam over at Pilgrim. All of our unknowns are kind of getting out of the way, so we're moving. We're on track. We're managing the project aggressively. So I really appreciate and respect the position you guys are in tonight, and I respect you guys as public servants. So thank you.
Councilman Gebhardt, back to you.
With that, with all the clarifications we've received, with all the work we've done on this amendment, I move favorable action on the item before us as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Napa. All right. So is there any further discussion on this matter as amended? By this matter, I mean PCO 6-26. Seeing none, clerk will please call the roll.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuise?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
No.
Mr. Muto?
Yes.
Mr. Napa?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
No.
7-2, motion passes as amended.
All right. And so in part, the reason why we had a special meeting is to make sure this is ideally finalized by the time we sit down on May 18th for the budget meetings. So is there any objection to this second passage being heard on our May 11th
Excuse me,
meeting?
Mr. President. I thought that there was going to be additional discussion and comments on this entire item.
That's what we just did.
I thought we were only voting on the amendment.
We had done that prior.
Okay, and make a motion to reconsider.
You're not part of the prevailing party. Somebody else would have to make that motion.
So there was no opportunity to make additional comments on this entire OPEB proposition.
So unless there's a motion to reconsider, we could say, is there any objection to?
Is there any objection
Hold on,
to-
I just want to make sure I word it right. Any objection to, how would we phrase this?
Point of
So does that-
order. With all due respect, we've motioned, we've seconded, we've voted, we're done.
With all due respect, we just spent 2.5 hours on your amendment. So what do you mean we're done?
Well, hold on. So you're entitled to bring this up. He's entitled to bring that up, but that's not neither here nor there. The question is if we can do this logistically, or even if it can be brought up. So the question would be, is there any objection to allowing a certain amount of time on this topic, but does that reopen it or it just allows further comment?
The councilman seems to wish to have a couple additional remarks added to the record.
Yes, I have
But there's-
prepared comments
We have,
that I would like to have added to the record.
So then what you suggested sounded like it would.
is there any objection to providing Councilman Lattiser a set amount of time to add those final remarks to the record? But we've already, reflective of the fact that we voted this item first passage already. Is there an objection?
So hold on. So as you just pointed out, this is first passage. We still have to come to second passage, right?
Correct.
Absolutely.
No
So-
problem. I'll make my prepared comments public, and I will have an opportunity to bring them before this honorable body again when we come for second passage.
Absolutely. Yep. That's absolutely you're right. So again, yeah, to return to my requests. So as long as there's no objection to second passage appearing before Finance Committee on May 11th, then we can have it then.
I object.
All right. So that means we're one of two options kicks in. We either have another special meeting to have second passage, because that's the only way to have this finalized prior to the budget, or we have second passage at the first budget meeting, which is, so on the 18th, rather, sorry.
It would.
So it appears that the determination is to have this item voted on prior to us receiving the city budget, prior to us receiving the school budget, prior to us having time to analyze all of it and have this voted on prior to the budget hearing.
I can't speak to having time to analyze because I'm not going to pretend to know how much time it's going to take for any particular person. But as far as the school budget, we'll have the detailed school budget any day now because they're about to be discussing it in roughly 2 days. So we'll definitely have that prior to second passage, regardless of when second passage is. As far as the city budget, my understanding is we'll be getting it imminently. Is it fair to say it would be prior to the 11th? Because I don't want to speak for you.
My understanding is that there are certain individuals that already have received the draft school budget. That's my understanding.
We're off topic on.
So that's why I worded it the way I worded it as far as the detailed school budget, Councilman, because there's a difference.
Got it.
So is it fair to say we'll have the budget before the 11th or no? I don't want to speak for you.
The budget will be in the paper on Thursday,
So that is prior to the 11th.
so you will have it on Wednesday.
So in answer to your question, yes, we'll have it prior. Yes, we'll have it prior. Unknown as far as whether or not that gives each and every one of you time to analyze both when it comes to being able to decide second passage on this.
So the statement that it will be in the paper Thursday does not mean that it'll be in our email box or in hard copy on Thursday.
Yes, it will. Yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
If
Thank
it's
you.
if it's advertised, it's on
Great.
the city website.
Thank you. So, Mr. President, to your point that if I continue with my objection, we're just going to burden everyone with another special meeting as opposed to allowing this to go to the regularly scheduled meeting.
I was just saying the options. I'm not criticizing one way or another. I'm saying if the objection stands, then we either have it on the 18th or we have another special meeting. That's all. Those are the options. Would be that what they may be.
I think the question here is whether this body would like to see if this is fully settled prior to any deliberation of the budget. There is a window of time. The budget doesn't take legal effect until July 1. So there is time for this to continue, but it provides an opportunity to give greater certainty as to whether this tool is officially available for the budget considerations.
I see the choices are we either are going to have a special meeting to overcome my objection, and that's it. So perhaps there should be a vote taken by this body. Do we want to have this meeting held at a special election? I'm sorry, another special meeting between now and the 18th, or do we want to have it on the 18th?
Traditionally, we hold ordinances skip a meeting or they're held at the next subsequent
Correct.
meeting, depending on the schedule, right? So if we have one meeting a month, at some point, sometimes it goes to the very next meeting. Otherwise, we usually skip one meeting.
Correct.
The question is whether the body would like to give unanimous consent to have this before the Finance Committee on May 11th for second passage. That's up to the 9 of you.
Mr. Solicitor, just a point of order, and this is only because I'm new, and I haven't run into this before. Is the reason why we skip a meeting just because it's customary, or is there a codified rule as to why we skip that meeting?
It has been the practice.
So there's no other reason other than it's customary.
We customarily use the precedent that a second passage has some sort of delay unless unanimous consent is granted. And that delay is either a full month cycle or the next, skipping one meeting to the next meeting. Those have been my recollection of the historical precedents, but it is not codified to my knowledge.
So it's just historical precedent that's the procedure we choose to follow.
Yes.
Could I direct a question through Council President to Councilman Lattiser? What is the basis of your objection to hearing it next week?
The basis of my objection is to have something that we're voting on in a manner that is not timely for us to have all these discussions. So perhaps you would be willing to put this to an individual vote as to whether or not we want to schedule this for the second hearing on May 11th or not.
No, and just to be clear,
Council President, if there's no,
The council
well, if
president
there's no
has
ordinance defining what timely is in this instance, then why are we voting on it?
I mean, we could just do away with our longstanding practice because it is not codified. But bear in mind, that's permanent. So I don't have any objection to going that route. But if someone was particularly attached to that practice, it's gone.
Well, Mr. President, I am not going to put everyone through another special meeting to avoid having this happen on May 18th. So if that's going to be the case, I'll withdraw my objection to the May 11th.
What's the condition, just so I make sure I don't want to?
The condition is what you asked to do, which is to have this moved to the next meeting, which is May 11th.
Okay, I understand. I apologize. I didn't want to misinterpret. Okay, so then it appears the objection is withdrawn. So therefore, this will be heard for second passage on May 11th. Thank you for actually considering that, Councilman. I appreciate it. All right, so then the next item before us is PCO 11-26, an ordinance. Wait, hold on. One of these was supposed to go before the other. Let's make sure we get the right one. Weren't we going to do 526 first? Because then that's what necessitated it.
The agenda has 11 before 5, or PCO 11-26 scheduled to decide what happens there. If that action is getting favorable action, then an amendment to PCO 5-26 would be in order. So that's why we're taking them in that order.
All right, now you switched them from the last agenda. All right, that was smart. All right, so PCO 11-26, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances to eliminate the Personnel Hearing Board and provide appeals to the city personnel directors. Administration?
Good evening, Bill Facenti again. So this should be pretty simple, should be. The administration is looking at removing in various sections of the city Code of Ordinances references to the Personnel Hearing Board. The Personnel Hearing Board is set up as an appeal for employees, non-union employees, and some union employees, depending on their choice, as it's mentioned, on appealing decisions of the appointing authority, which would be the city, for various terminations, suspensions, disciplinary actions. The way it stands right now, the Personnel Hearing Board is made up of 3 individuals. They're appointed. They have a stipend, which will be taken up in the next ordinance. We're moving to disband the Personnel Hearing Board and having the appeal be heard by a panel selected by the mayor. It's not a board. It's just impaneled as needed. The current Personnel Hearing Board, I believe, has not met since 2018. This is a requirement that the city have some form of appeal, adjudicating appeal. I believe it's both state and federal law. And so the mayor would appoint no less than 1 and no more than 3 persons to hear the appeal. And that's on, starting on page 3, line 1 and 2. And there's also other various amendments that reference the Personnel Hearing Board throughout the section that is proposed. So there's no change to the appeals. The employees will still have the right to appeal. It's just removing the Personnel Hearing Board.
And I don't know if you stated it, but the Personnel Hearing Board hasn't met for some ungodly amount of time, right?
2018, I believe.
Yeah. All right. And so before we get going, Solicitor Walsh has some potential amendment or amendments.
I have one correction of some Scrivener's errors on bottom of page 3, lines 41 and 42. If we could, if there's no objection, to delete the words the by. There's a duplication of words there, as well as pluralizing persons on line 42. So we delete the word, all charges of such violations shall be investigated and determined by not less than. It would delete the additional language there and then insert an S at the end of person to pluralize it. Is there any objection?
So is there any objection to the technical amendments? All right. So seeing none, assuming I'm interpreting the lack of reaction of appropriately so ordered. So then, again, back to you, Solicitor, for the other one.
I believe, is it Councilman Napa had asked for some clarifying language? Is that where we came from?
Your proposed amendment regarding it not stating the personnel director, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but I'm not sure where that.
He's got the language for you, don't worry.
Oh, great. Solicitor,
Top of
knock
page
it out.
3, line 2, we would, where it says not less than one, no more than 3 persons designated by the mayor, and then we're deleting a bunch of language, we would insert the language which shall not include the personnel director. So the personnel director would not be eligible to participate in the panel that they are appointing.
So, Mr. Solicitor, thank you for that. I just have like a follow-up question to that instance and just some clarification as to why I suggested that. So my thoughts on this were initially like thinking of the NFL. When you get suspended by the commissioner of the league, then you appeal to the commissioner of the league. So it would be nonsensical if the personnel director fired you, laid you off, disciplined you, and then you're appealing to that same person. So that was the kind of the genesis of my suggested amendment here. Now, this bears the question that what if this is a mayoral decision to discipline or terminate someone, and that person then has to appeal to a board that the mayor is appointing? But just along the same lines. But I'll leave it at that.
Well, one at a time. First, your first item that you wanted to hit, the personnel director. Can we do that one? And then we can potentially do whatever else after. So is there a second regarding the proposed, Councilman Gephardt, second? Is there any discussion regarding that amendment to make it so that the personnel director cannot be part of that committee? And my understanding is that the administration has no objection with that proposed amendment. So I know the lights are on, but I don't know if it's to discuss the whole topic or the proposed amendment. It appears to be to discuss the whole topic. All right. So do we want to do a vote first for that? All right. So first, can the clerk call the roll on the vote for the amendment to remove the personnel director as proposed by Councilman Knapp? Not removed from work, but from the potential committee.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuise?
Yes.
Mr. Foley? Yes. Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. Muto?
Yes.
Mr. Napa?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
All right. And now the other thing that you wanted to do.
So I guess that bears a question through the council president to the administration is what happens in that instance? If you decide as the administration to terminate or discipline someone, what is the appeal process in that instance?
It would be the same process. I mean, bear in mind it's always been like that. The personnel hearing boards are appointed by the mayor. It was. Yep. Biggest reason we want to get rid of it, they haven't met since 2018, but they've been getting paid since 2018. And these people wouldn't receive any kind of a stipend, and you just have to trust the mayor to be fair. I mean, most of the discipline decisions don't get to my level. They handle the personnel, except for the really big ones. And that's a whole different ballgame.
Okay. Thank you.
So do you still have a proposed amendment, or are you fine?
No,
as
that
is?
was just a question as to like
Oh,
what's
fair
the
enough.
process if the administration takes on that action, and the fact that we've been operating under a mayorally appointed board, we're in the same position. We're in no different position than we would have been other than we're not paying anybody to do these roles and sit around for 5 years.
It is certainly an improvement. Councilman Lattiser.
8 years.
Mayor, I think I just heard you say that the appointments currently have been made by the mayor. Is that exclusively by the mayor? I lose track on, I know there's only very few appointments the council has, but I lost track on that one.
Yep, personnel hearing boards, just the mayor.
And how many appointments are?
There are 3.
There are 3 now.
Well, there actually 2. I didn't fill one because they never meet anyway.
But currently it calls for 3.
Yep, and I think Mayor Abedisian appointed them.
Okay. And if this passes, it could be 1 or it could be as many as 3?
Right.
So at the mayor's option, and again, for me, this is long-term, it's not necessarily directed to your administration. There could be a time when the mayor will appoint only one person to this appeal board, which, as I look at it, gives the mayor pretty much total control. I think Councilman Napper brought up a very good point of what happens for someone's appeal process when the individual or the administration who's making the recommendation of termination is being judged by the sole person appointed by the mayor. That's concerning to me. If there's 3 people, then fine. At least 2 would have to either confirm or oppose the mayor's direction. I just think that this is a problem with separation of powers. I think it creates a bad perception where the administration could be, perhaps the mayor has fired someone and that's being appealed to the very person the mayor has appointed. I think it just gives too much power to whomever is sitting in that mayor's seat. That's my opinion.
So is it fair to say you would prefer it to be always a 3-member, not a 1, 2, 3?
Good point, Mr. President.
I thought that's what you were getting at. I apologize.
Good point. So that would just keep it where it is. So if it stays to 3 members, then I don't see any need for this legislation at all.
Well, so to be clear, so the other item on the docket is the reason why this legislation is before us, because the other item on the docket seeks to abolish the personnel hearing board because we're paying them for basically nothing as of now since 2018. So this PCO 11-26 that's before us would be the alternative process, because we do have to have a process per this state law according to the administration. And that process as proposed now would be an ad hoc committee of 1 to 3 members, not consisting of the personnel director. And I thought what you were getting at was you prefer that number not be 1 to 3, but instead just be 3.
Ideally, I would prefer to see it stay at 3, with the mayor having 2 appointments and the city council having 1.
No, that can't happen. This is purely an executive function. This panel would be put together for a particular case.
Yeah, so this is an on-demand committee. It's not a standing committee
Okay.
as proposed.
Well, at the very least, then, I would prefer to see it be a minimum of 3 members as opposed to 1.
Alrighty, so I'm going to make sure we come back to you before we wrap up so that you have the opportunity to make that motion if you so
Okay.
choose. Councilman Gephardt.
Okay, so we're here at this cleanup because when we were cleaning up stipends for other boards, we identified this one as one that hadn't met in a substantial amount of time. My opinion on this, I mean, I come from the private sector. State of Rhode Island, we're at-will employees. The mayor is the chief executive of the city. If the mayor deems someone fired, they're fired. What happens after that is why there's lawyers in the room. So I would keep this as minimal as possible. I think this is, for, I don't know what this is for, but maybe for extreme cases where there was a miscommunication or something else. But Rhode Island, at-will employment, fired for any reason at any time, and that's how it is. So I'm fine with making it 1 person or 3 people. I think simplicity though is better. I like the range. You could get a you could get sort of a ticky-tacky appeal for someone who should be fired, should have been fired, but decides to exercise, especially now that we're talking for multiple meetings about the appeal board. We may actually see an appeal out of this. But you could get sort of a ticky-tacky appeal that doesn't really have merit. That I guess would be the step before hiring a lawyer for a wrongful termination or something of that nature. And do you really want to force the mayor to put 3 people together in a room to hear this appeal? You know, maybe if it doesn't necessitate it. I could see your point. However, I'll fall back to the point of I would love to not even have this at all if it wasn't required by state law, because to me, you know, if whoever's sitting in the corner office decides you're fired, then you should be fired.
All right, so Councilman Ricks.
A question to the administration to clarify. Are all persons, all employees, that is, of the city who would be contesting termination before the Personnel Hearing Board, is every single person that could possibly appeal considered an at-will employee?
What? Go ahead.
So I'm not an attorney, so I would defer to the 4 of you that are here. I believe, to Councilman Gephardt's point, we're an at-will state. Obviously, we have 3 different types of employees with the city. They're appointed, serve at the pleasure. Non-classified employees, like myself, serve at the pleasure of the mayor. They can, you know, if he's not happy, he can tell me to leave tomorrow. Then we have classified employees. You have to be fired for cause. Then union employees have additional protections. This covers all employees that that choose or feel they're been aggrieved by the appointing authority, an action by the appointing authority, whether it's through suspension, a termination, pass it over for anything that an employee feels aggrieved. The union employees also have an option in here to take advantage of the Personnel Appeal Board, the Personnel Hearing Board, or an appeal to a body, but they have to choose, because in their contract there's also another remedy. They can't do both. You can't get 2 bites of the apple. This is part of the fair labor practices. We have to provide some form of appeal, and this is what we're trying to do. I mean, if you want to leave it the way it is, that's fine. I mean, we're just doing it because it was brought up that, you know, the Personnel Appeal Board, Personnel Hearing Board has not met since 2018. They're getting paid. We have 2 members on it that, you know, we don't know if we can get them to actually meet, you know, so, but it doesn't matter. It just cleans up and makes things more efficient, which we try to do. Don't want to do it, that's fine. You know?
Thank you.
As to the number of the panel, I mean, if you're thinking that I can fix it by putting 1 person in there, I could as easily do it with 5. I could put my staff on the Personnel Hearing Board. You just have to trust the mayor. And also, I mean, to get fired from this city, it's severe. It's usually open and shut, and we don't get appeals. It hasn't been done in 8 years. The union would go the grievance process.
Thank you. I mean, it makes sense to me. I mainly wanted to clarify that that assumption, I suppose, about at-will employment applying to all of the city employees who could potentially take this appeal process. Yeah, the point is certainly very well taken as to the process not exactly being taken very often at all. But if that option has to be provided as a matter of state law, then it seems to me that we should probably be making sure that it's complying with both the spirit and the letter of state law to make sure that it's not an entirely redundant type of process. So I would tend to agree with Councilman Lattiser. I'll reserve my time.
All right, so back to you, Councilman Lattiser. Do you want to make that motion?
Based upon the conversations I've just heard, I will withdraw my motion and revert back to simplicity, particularly given that there has been no instances in the last 8 years. I also am considering the potential for getting a quorum, even with 3 people. So with that said, I will withdraw my motion.
So just to make sure I understood properly, you don't want to move forward on a proposed amendment?
No, that's why I withdrew it.
All right, just making sure I understood. All right, so does anyone else wish to speak on this as amended? And this being PCO 11-26. All right, so seeing none, do we have a motion for favorable action from anybody?
So
or
moved.
unfavorable? All right,
Second.
so move for favorable action for Councilman Foley, seconded by Councilman Gebhardt. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk will please call the roll.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuise?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. Muno?
Yes.
Mr. Napa?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
9 yes as amended.
All right, next is PCO 5-26, an ordinance amending section 64-5 of the Code of Ordinances relative to the compensation of other officials. This would be first passage. Hold on, please. So we have to make sure because we didn't have public comment on that item prior. So for PCO 11-26, does anyone from the public wish to speak on it? All right, fair enough. So PCO 5-26 then, so we don't forget. Does any member of the public want to speak on that? And that being an ordinance amending section 64-5 of the Code of Ordinances relative to the compensation of other officials. Okay, so Councilman Gebhardt, this is yours. Or do you want to go to the solicitor first?
So the original item was to limit the payment of the Personnel Hearing Board. Councilman Gebhardt has an amendment that would eliminate the Personnel Hearing Board in its entirety now that the potential adjustments made from the prior item would flow. So the amendment would, rather than insert new language to number 7, the Personnel Hearing Board, that new language would be deleted, but all of the existing language would be deleted so that there would be no number 7 and we would just put a reserved in its place. So this would, the amendment would entirely eliminate the Personnel Hearing Board.
All right, does anyone have any objection to that amendment as proposed? Oh, to his point, is there a second first?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Napa, so I'll just go back again. For discussion purposes, does anyone have any objection to adopting that amendment as proposed? You're gonna make me call a roll anyway? All right. He let me do it. So by unanimous consent, so ordered. So now it's before us as amended. So now the proposal is to eliminate the Personnel Hearing Board altogether. I'll ask again just for completion's sake. Does any member of the public wish to comment on that? All right, and now, does anyone wish to make a motion regarding the PCO 5-26
I
as
move
amended?
favorable action.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is any discussion? Does anyone have anything for discussion regarding PCO 5-26 as amended? Councilman DeLuise.
I'd like to make an amendment. I just want to increase the zoning board chairperson's salary to $400 a month. Because he's a good friend of mine? Just kidding.
Does anyone else have anything for discussion on this?
Do you need a second on that?
All right, so motion made and seconded. The clerk will please call the roll.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuise?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. Muto?
Yes.
Mr. Napa?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
9 yes.
Seeing no more business in front of this honorable body, I'd move to a docketing session.
Is there a second to go to the docket session? Second. Any objections? All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right. Ward 1.
Pass.
Ward 2.
Pass.
Ward 3. Ward 4.
Pass.
Ward 5. Ward 6. Ward 7.
Pass.
Ward 9. And one moment on mine. I just have to check.
I don't think so.
Council President Sinapi has two items to docket. The first item is a resolution relative to transfers, supplemental appropriations, and emergency appropriations. It's a resolution that would go to finance. And the other item is a resolution adopting and setting the tax rate of the city of Warwick for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2026, and ending on June 30, 2027. Both of these are on behalf of the mayor. This is a resolution, would also go to the finance committee. Do you have anything else?
I believe so. No, that should be it. All right, so council stands adjourned at 9:18 p.m.
Paul appreciates your efforts on his behalf.